All right, we have about 120 participants in. I think we can start. Thank you everybody for joining in and welcome to the first masterclass on UHI. This masterclass is a part of the series of masterclasses that we'll be having this week and next week in the run-up to the UHI hackathon. Many of you actually have been a partner with Abdm before and have been actively integrating with Abdm. With UHI, it represents a new paradigm in how digital health services are rendered in India. And hopefully, we will be able to make UHI a bigger success than UPI is. So to start us off, we have on the call the additional CEO of NHA, who is also the mission director of Abdm and has played a very important role in conceptualizing Abdm and its implementation so far. We also have on the call the Executive Director IT from NHA, Mr. Kiran Gopal, who has been leading the implementation of UHI from day one. And also on the call is Dr. Pramod Verma, who has been the chief architect of Aadhaar and has played a very important role in conceptualizing UHI through the digital health protocols, decentralized health protocols, and backend. So without further ado, over to the additional CEO, Dr. Praveen
Gina. Thank you, Vivek. And I welcome all the participants of this first masterclass. India and the world has been witnessing a kind of digital transformation in last 2 or 3 decades. And one sector which has been resistant to this particular change is the health sector. It's a story of the world, not only India. So we have had successful digitizations in finance, travel and tourism, and every other sector, but for health. And there are some challenges which we have to address to make this happen. Fortunately, one good aspect of the recent COVID pandemic, which was obviously devastating in all the ways possible. But one thing which has come out positively is the acceptability of digital technology across all the socio-economic spectrum in providing healthcare as well. So we have seen number of teleconsultations, for example, growing exponentially in last 2 years. So I think this is the right watershed moment where we have to decide the proper way forward, the proper course to take to expand digitization in the healthcare. And India has its unique success stories. When we talk about scalable, simple, with ease of use kind of digital public goods, we have examples of Aadhaar, CoWIN, UPI, with billions of transactions, each of them. And they have scaled up and they have been put to a very effective use. And they have been designed and scaled up in a way which is a kind of horizontal, cutting across silos. So this is how we have to probably go forward. If you study the National Digital Health Blueprint, all these concepts are described in detail. So what we do at Abdm, Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, is we intend to basically break the silos, the digital silos. X hospital should be able to talk to health locker Y, and it should be able to talk to pharmacy Z. So all these silos are to be broken. The platform has to be interoperable, open, with some standards. And when we talk about UHI, the Unified Health Interface, the term we have actually taken the term from UPI, which is now very popular, and now it's a global best practice, if I can say so. So what UHI intends to do is to make this integration happen without creating a digital silo like Amazon, Facebook, which talks only internally. So that is the whole thing, and I will not delve into technical details because there are speakers after me who will be speaking on that. But now you think of opportunities. The basic fundamental principle that government is following is that we will lay down the basic platform, and we will create reference applications like UPI and Bhim, but we will allow private sector innovation and also innovation in the government sector. Government is also a huge entity. There are different state governments. So basically innovation to flourish on the top of this platform, which on the top of our digital public goods, the way it has happened in UPI ecosystem. And here comes the opportunities and challenges to innovate. If you think of health sector, you think of a big matrix. So we can have one column which we can list out what are the areas of intervention. So we have preventive health, we have treatment. Within treatment, we have primary, secondary, tertiary, and these days they also use term quaternary health. Then there is a wellness, all the concept of wellness, which is health plus kind of concept. Then also there are other services. For example, ambulance services, health insurance sector, and all that. Then you think of another column, different systems of medicines. We have allopathy, dental, then Ayurveda, homeopathy, Siddha, Unani. Then there are other teams also, physiotherapy, nursing, and then there are 56 recognized paramedical streams. It includes lab technician and everything like that. And then you also think of way of providing healthcare. It can be physical, it can be remote, or it can be hybrid. And you now imagine these columns multiply with each other, A into B into C into D. These are the number of possible combinations which you can think of. So if you want to innovate specifically into teleconsultation, think how you can do that. You can probably say, okay, I will provide this additional feature in which patient and doctor are consulting with each other, and we can have a quick group consultation with a specialist, or patient and specialist consulting with each other, and I can quickly onboard the local general practitioner who is going to follow up this patient so that specialist can give a proper direction to the GP. All these permutations and combinations you should think. You can think of how do I display search results. You imagine, for example, I am sitting in Delhi, I am searching for, let us say, South Indian restaurant near Connaught Place, right? Somebody can
Sir, just give me 1 minute. I will mute all and then you could unmute yourself. Okay, just give me 1 minute. Sir. Yes, sir. You can unmute yourself.
So I was explaining, if I want to search for I want to have lunch in Delhi. I'm sitting in Connaught Place in Delhi right now. I generally search, okay, South Indian restaurant near me. But now you imagine this kind of search we try to do in healthcare. You have to probably explain speciality, the language which you speak. You may not be knowing Hindi necessarily. You may want to have a communication in Tamil. Then you might have a price range. You want to see some other facilities available in the hospital. You may want to have a special room or whatever. So all these combinations have to be explained. And we have a healthcare professionals whose number runs into, doctors are there around 2 million doctors in India, and other healthcare professionals which are 4 million. So 60 lakh is a big number. And 1 million healthcare facilities. So we have to think of a proper way which can appeal to a customer or a citizen, which throws out search results which are very convenient for him to get connected to. So it is a good idea for a patient in some remote area of Bihar to have teleconsultation with say specialist in Mumbai or Delhi for a complicated case, but for common cold, he may want to connect to the nearby district level or taluka level GP, because he will have that additional personal touch and he can follow up with a physical visit if required. So all these things can go. You can think of how do we come out with clinical decision support systems which make the life of nurses and doctor easy. So can you think of a solution in which a set of symptoms can lead doctor to a particular diagnosis? Obviously, there are some legal issues. We can explain it separately. The UI UX, here is the key. Doctors hate using digital systems because of UI UX. You cannot expect Indian doctors to treat 100 patients in his OPD like a doctor in United States who has 4 or 5 patients in a day. They are totally different scenarios. So you have to think of how to make it even more user friendly. Can we think of speech to text, handwriting to text, autocorrect, and how do you get a farmer, a rural person, a villager on board? So India has proven to be, we generally are seen as a country which is not really developed, but we have shown tremendous growth in use of social media. We have like 40 crore plus users of WhatsApp, UPI, then Facebook, and all such solutions which everybody is using on their phone with quite an ease, including 60 plus, 70 plus population. So I think there is a lot to do. And this whole initiative of hackathon is basically to make you people come together, brainstorm, think, and come out with ideas which will ride on the top of what government is doing. And this is a very good way, I think, to go forward, kind of public and private collaboration that we intend to have. We will explain you the technicalities in sessions after I conclude my speech. But I thank all of you once again and look forward to more and more ideas. Please spread a word about this hackathon. And also, I also look forward to meet as many as you possible physically in person in Pune in the next week. With that, I once again welcome you, and I request all of you to give your best and come out with ideas in the coming hackathon series. Thank you, and Vivek, I think, can take the session forward.
Thank you so much, sir, for laying the vision for the digital health future in India, and also introducing the hackathon and the problem statements that we'll have, which address some of the key problems that the doctors and the health professional community has been facing for years now. As the next part of the session, we have Kiran Gopal sir, the Executive Director, IT for NHA, giving an overview of both what Abdm has been doing so far, why Abdm is important, and further a little bit of deep dive into what the Abdm stack looks like. Kiran Gopal sir, over to you.
Thank you, Vivek. If you can put up the slide, please. Naresh is doing it. So while the slides come up, so welcome all of you, and we are extremely happy to see such enthusiastic participation, although it has been a very short notice to many of you. And then from what the additional CEO has mentioned, the whole objective of this hackathon is to kind of crowdsource creativity, crowdsource talent, and make sure that we as part of this entire effort to revolutionize digital health are able to create those digital public goods which can take digital health in India, or rather healthcare in India, to the next level. So I will very briefly talk about certain things about Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, and and also tell you about what things you can keep in mind, or what things what are the core principles behind based on which we are working. And I think that should be able to give you an idea as to, while you work on these solutions or the challenges that we have given you, that should be able to give you some sort of a headway or kind of a guidance. Next, please. Next slide, please. So the vision and the principles, the core vision and principles behind Abdm is to deliver. Anybody can read it, obviously. So it's like to deliver quality healthcare to all patients by building an equitable, accessible, standards-based and inclusive digital health ecosystem that ensures security, confidentiality, and privacy. So as you can see, we lay great emphasis on these aspects such as equity, access, and inclusion. And this is where the whole openness idea comes from. And this is where participation, community involvement, and involving everybody that matters comes to the fore. So the basic idea is to build solutions that can be scaled and that are accessible. Interoperability and openness is at the core of Abdm. The architecture is completely decentralized in the sense that even for the most important thing, that is the health record of an individual, which is at the core, that is actually the lifeblood of this entire system. We follow what we call a federated architecture. That is, data stays where it is created. We don't store data in any single large cloud or some data center or somewhere. It really stays where it is created and is available to the individual and also to any other healthcare information user who adds value or uses this information to provide service on demand. And all this happens through the consent of the patient. So this is where the patient-centric idea and inclusiveness comes into being. Until now, I would say the health programs that we have been running have been mainly programs. I want to run a program for TB. I want to run a program for X. I want to run a program for Y. We are trying to put the patient at the center of all this. So we are trying to move from a program-centric approach to a patient-centric approach. And finally, transparency and security are key. And these are like our guiding principles. The idea that the philosophy is security by design. The digital health blueprint that the CEO had mentioned has this at the core. So these are the principles that we are working on. And I would like to emphasize that while you are creating solutions, you would like to keep these in mind. Next, please. Next. Okay. So as part of Abdm, what have we done so far? So we created what we are calling ABHA, which is the Ayushman Bharat Health Account number, which is like a individual identity that we have given for any particular person who wants to be part of this ecosystem. As of today, we have created close to 23 crore ABHAs. And at the back end of ABHA is Aadhaar and other identification sources, such as we have also given option for driving license and passports. But ABHA is at the Aadhaar is at the back end, because since we cannot use Aadhaar for day-to-day transactions on a regular basis, we have Aadhaar as the front layer for it. ABHA is the front end layer for it. The healthcare professional registry, like again it was mentioned earlier that there are close to 6 million different kinds of healthcare professionals in the country. The objective is to create a verified digital repository of all these professionals, which then becomes part of the digital ecosystem. So tomorrow, as we may become more and more digital, these are and it is our plan going ahead to introduce what we are calling verifiable credentials that can actually be used by these professionals to authenticate or use as authentication tools for all the digital records that they're creating on the system. Plus, this creates a easily accessible, verified repository, and anybody, any startup, any application which is coming into the system does not have to spend time, energy, and money in verifying individuals or professionals. The facility registry is again similar. In fact, as of today, we've reached 1 lakh facilities that have registered with us. And this includes hospitals, sub-centers, district level hospitals, labs, etc., etc. The objective is again to create a repository of verified list of facilities which can be used as search results or which can be used, whose information can be used for various purposes as well. The PHR app or ABA is a reference application where we are trying to demonstrate how by using the ABA identity and various registries and the health objects that we have created can actually view his or her personal records, and this all happens through the HIECM or the consent match. And lastly, the unified health interface. The unified health interface is what this whole hackathon is currently about. This is trying to build an interoperable ecosystem, trying to move from a platform-based system to a network-based system where anybody is easily discoverable and anybody can communicate with any other entity. And as I speak, there are some questions which are talking about our transport, ambulance providers, etc., captured within the framework. Yes, and in fact, as you go ahead in this presentation, all that will be made more clear to you. Next, please. So this is the Apdm stack, the technology stack that is making all this possible. At the bottom is the India's cross-cutting horizontal digital public goods that the additional CEO has mentioned: Aadhaar, UPI, e-sign, DigiLocker, the consent artifact, which is at the heart of the whole consent framework that we are using. The health building blocks, I've already mentioned that to you. The unified health interface, the key what you call gateway that will actually help the interplay of all these players. And at top come these applications, and this is where you all come in. And of course, you can add and improve the UHI protocol as well. But mainly, you would be interacting at this layer where you are creating applications, where you are creating apps and other such systems which are using all these parts of the stack to provide those digital health services that we are all trying to provide. Next. So the next session would be about demystifying what this whole UHI is about, and this is where some of the questions that are coming up will be raised. So I would like to conclude by saying that this unified health interface, we have reached a stage where we have reference applications, where we have a reference gateway, where we have the sandbox ready. We have our core principles and core ideas ready. We all welcome you to come participate, be part of this endeavor to revolutionize the way digital health or health services are provided in this country by using your innovation and your creativity to add on to the solutions and add on to the features that we have already tried to do. And I'm sure that with your participation, we'll be able to enrich not only the protocol, but also the varied services that we are currently thinking. We might have thought of N, but then you will come, I'm sure you will all come back with N+1, where you will add on to what we have already done and make this an even more complete protocol and ecosystem. Thank you very much, and welcome all again. And I really look forward to interacting with you all both online and offline going ahead. Vivek, you can take over and the next presentation can start off.
Thank you, Kiran sir, for setting the goalpost for us in terms of what we need to build to achieve the vision that was laid down by Dr. Praveen Gedam. The next session on demystifying UHI, which will cover the basic concepts of UHI, will be taken by Avijit Dutt, who is the IT PMU lead at NHA. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Vivek. Welcome everyone, and thanks for being a part of this journey. And as Praveen sir and Kiran sir have already set the context. So let me get into the UHI bit and try to demystify this as much as possible. If I just spend a few seconds on what Kiran sir has just discussed as part of the Abdm building blocks. So as you could understand, Abdm is essentially an enabler platform which would like to make the life easy for all the stakeholders in the health ecosystem, be it the patient, be it the health provider, facilities, health professionals, healthcare professionals. So this building block UHI is also one aspect of this. What we have already covered till now, as Sir has already discussed about the ABHA, which is the health ID, then the HPR, the health facility registry, and the PHR app, which is basically the front end of a platform called HICM, or Health Information Exchange and Consent Management. So till now, we were essentially talking about exchange of health records seamlessly between facilities, between professionals, and the patients would be able to share or exchange his health records based on consents. So this is essentially about the health record part of the spectrum. With UHI, we are essentially getting into the health service delivery and how we are kind of unifying all the stakeholders by bringing them into this one platform. So that's what UHI is striving to achieve. And if you look at what it aims to, so one is obviously the discoverability. There are so many service providers in different areas of health service. I mean, there could be the health professionals who is providing consultation, be it physical, be it digital. There are ambulance provider, pharmacies. There are people who are doing tests. There are people who are doing consultation. So discoverability is a big challenge. You know that you had various services, you have the requirement, but how to discover them. And then second aspect is the verified providers and transparency in pricing. So you have the providers of different health services, but health, as we all understand, it's a very sensitive and very critical subject, where the quality of service provider and the credential, the credibility of that professional or that service provider, be it a facility, is very important. And transparency in terms of service offering, the commercial part of it, that's as well very critical. And how we can set up a platform where delivery of service in terms of fulfillment and monetization of that service becomes easy and the entry barrier goes down. And it should be an enabler platform for the health tech providers. It's kind of a it should foster the innovation part of it, and that's where our journey begins with this hackathon. So basically, the kind of services that we would like to bring into this platform, and which will be again enabled by health tech providers, are like digital consultation, searching and booking, ambulance services, lab diagnostic services. These are the things, kind of health services we would like to make this platform support. Vivek, we can move to the next slide. And as I discussed, who are the stakeholders? So there, obviously, the first and foremost is the citizens. So for citizens, what is the benefit we are bringing to the table? I mean, you can have easy access to the services related to healthcare. You have a choice of providers. You have competing prices. You have control over data. How you would like to have your data, you have a control over that. Then you have the doctors and the hospitals. Today, if you look at the doctors who is running their own private chambers or a small clinic in our local neighborhood, they probably do not have enough infrastructure or enough investment appetite for setting up an application which will make them make them discoverable in the digital platform. So they can be, they can take leverage of this particular platform and be a part of this digital enablement. Then you have pharmacies. Similarly, they can be a part of it, diagnostic labs, and most importantly, and that's where this hackathon is kind of a starting point, is the health tech, are the health tech startups. Many of you are already our Abdm partners. You have been part of the HICM journey. So you have, your apps have been enabled with M1, M2, by which you can exchange and share health records. So these functionalities is already there. And those of you who are new to this ecosystem, it is an opportunity for you to be part of this, ecosystem and take advantage of this particular platform. Yeah, next slide. All right, so I mean, this is kind of self-explanatory, but I would still like to give you a few examples. So today you have many health tech providers providing you apps, and then there are many hospital networks who has got also who has their own apps. Even government of India has got many applications which will offer online booking or booking of appointment, or they provide all the test reports online. These kind of features are available. Then you have all the great apps who has got their listed doctors and health facilities whom you can search and browse. The problem is that all these apps work in silos. They have their own front end, they have their own mobile apps, and they have their own backend application, server-side application. So, I mean, even if I shy away from giving example of the health industry, but I can probably give you a different industry. Say, if you look at the transportation part, we all know two of the main apps we have today. One is Uber, one is Ola. We use them often to search for drivers. But the problem is, then if you search using Ola, you can't get the drivers who are probably very near to your place, but you are not using Uber, and vice versa. What if there is one app which could actually connect to any of the providers on the same interface and give you a list of all the cabs that are available, irrespective of who is the service provider? So basically today we are at the scenario is what we have in this particular slide. You have different apps working in silos. So the service provision component and the the end user component, they are connected through different proprietary gateways. They are might be based on the proprietary technology as well. So you are basically not having a single platform to which all the service provider and the consumers are connecting to. So that's the scenario what we have today. Yeah, next slide. So this is what UHI brings to the table. UHI gives you a gateway, a bridge which sits in between. It offers open interfaces. I mean, from a more technically, narrowed down term, I would say it will offer APIs to all the providers that are those want to be part of UHI, and all the consumer platforms like the end user application. So an interface by which once you get connected to this platform, you would be able to seamlessly discover services irrespective of which platform this service is being offered. So that's basically the key point what UHI brings to the table. So basically, as you can see, that this is open, secure, and inclusive by design. Anybody who will be integrating with this platform is part of the wider ecosystem. and it encourages participation from all. So you could be a large platform, one of the leading health tech provider, already a large hospital chain, and you have got your HMIS or LMIS, which you can make it UHI compliant and be part of the ecosystem. Similarly, a neighborhood, local neighborhood, small doctor's chamber, or a very small test laboratory can also take benefit of this platform. So basically, this is something which is offering, which is kind of looking at, creating this enablement for all the health tech as well as the health facility or the health service providers. So this is essentially what UHI is. It is an open service ecosystem which will bridge the gap between demand and supply side of the market, and it actually gives you a platform where you integrate easily and be part of this ecosystem. Yeah, next slide. So essentially what we are looking at, so when you look at UHI protocol, which has adopted the DHP protocol, which you will maybe see in next few slides. So basically the UHI protocol, end of the day, it is essentially, it has got a part which is the gateway part, and then there's a consumer and the service provider part. So it is essentially creating a network. So to say, it actually creates a gateway, and that's what we at NHA have currently built. We have built a gateway with set of APIs that will be available to you, whether you would like to create a EUA side of the application, or you would like to create the HPA side of the application, or you create both of them. This will provide you a secured gateway to enable your platform, and at scale. I mean, you would be able to scale up your application, because essentially for the routing and for connecting seamlessly to the other side, you will be using this particular platform. So these are the components. Yeah. So these are the components. I have mentioned them in the earlier slides as well. So we have an end user application that is essentially something some of you are going to build. We have health service provider applications. That is, some of you again are probably going to build this, or if you might be already having some applications, be it UA or be it HSPA. What you will be doing, basically, you will integrate them with UHI platform. The core UHI platform has actually two components. One is the gateway, one is the registry. What is the gateway? Gateway is essentially the route, where we offer you the APIs, where you get connected. Registry is, again, it is something all of you who know that it is a registry is kind of the reference where we create record of all the EUAs and the HSPAs, those who have to communicate with each other and those who are part of the ecosystem. So basically, you understand that what is the route and from where you have to go to which destination. At the end of the day, what you are going to make, all these applications are doing nothing but some API request, and you will get some response to understand that where that API should go from its intent, and then where the response, where the request should go and where the response should go back, will be decided by this gateway, and the intelligence will be provided by the registry. So these are essentially the components what we have. The bottom two components, the UHI gateway and the UHI registry, is already there. We have created a sandbox where the gateway is already available. We have all the documentations also. So you would see the specification, the flaggers, all of them in the sandbox. We have also created a UA and a HSPA. We like to call them reference apps. One is you could use them. You could look at how they are built, look at the functionalities which can act as a reference point for you to build your own applications. But nevertheless, this is something which is, these are bare bone applications, should be treated as a reference application, and you can innovate features and functionalities. And basically that's the spirit of this hackathon as well. Yeah, next slide. So essentially that was what UHI is all about. As I mentioned, UHI essentially is an adoption and extension of an existing protocol, which is decentralized health protocol. My next speaker will be covering that part. So I would like to thank all of you again, and wish you all the best. I hope all of you will be using this opportunity to bring out awesome tech products, and at least if not a full-blown products, but great prototypes and some great POCs, and we would see some great innovative works here. Thanks again, and Vivek, what to you?
Thank you, Abhijit, sir, for that overview on UHI. As Abhijit sir pointed out in his presentation towards the end, that UHI is an adaptation of existing protocols, decentralized health protocols, though Indian in origin. It would be great to have it adopted all over the world. And Bharat and Ravi are a part of Backend Foundation, who are playing a central role in defining these protocols and pushing for their adoption. Over to you, Bharat and Ravi, to explain to the community what DHP is and how its application, how it's being applied to be in UHI.
Thanks a lot, Vivek. Just doing a quick sound check here. Can you guys hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right, thank you. Just one more thing, Vivek. Is it okay if I can take over the presentation so that I'll have a little more
Yes,
control?
Naresh, if you can stop presenting.
All right, thanks a lot. Hope my screen is visible.
Yes.
Yes. All right, cool. So let's start. So for those who don't know me, I'm Ravi Prakash. I'm the head of architecture at Backend Foundation and a member of the DHP working group. In the next 1 hour, I'm going to take you all through the DHP specification in the context of UHI. And we will cover the architecture of the specification that contains the APIs it specifies, the schema that it supports, and finally, an illustrative view of the APIs using a UHI-enabled application. Before we jump right into it, let's just look at some basics, definitions of what UHI is and what UHI is in the context of DHP. So I think the previous slide was not able to sort of cover this small section over here, but just reintroducing this over here. The UHI protocol consists of 2 layers of APIs, right? One is a very core, very narrow, low-level transaction APIs called DHP that enables any healthcare consumer and healthcare provider to talk to each other. And then a broader set of open APIs that sort of build the network infrastructure that allow that facilitate the reliable communication, facilitate communication of policies, and emission of data, handling of grievances, etc. Right. So those are called network extension APIs. So UHI is a combination of 2 sets of APIs. One is a low-level transaction API called DHP, and another set of APIs called the network extension APIs, together forming the UHI protocol. Right now, let's sort of double click on the DHP layer, the low-level transaction layer itself, and see what that is. Right. So the decentralized health protocol, as you can see, is an open source transaction specification, which when implemented enables creation of a network, right, in the form of a shared digital infrastructure that can connect any health and wellness consumer platform to health and wellness provider platforms via a standard set of APIs, right? And just as an FYI, DHP is an adaptation of backend protocol, which is a very generic protocol for transaction, but specified for the domain of health and wellness. Right? The DHP specifications are available on GitHub. Maybe the links can be shared maybe at the end of the call. But let's now proceed and see what DHP exactly enables. Right? So let's now dive into the technology overview of DHP. But before we sort of jump into the APIs itself, let's just look at some basics that will help us understand the specification better. Yeah. So I think, as mentioned earlier today, right, in today's world, all communication or all transactions between consumers and providers happen via platforms, right? The platform matches the consumers I wants to the providers I haves, and basically creates a matching and creates this store of value in between, right? This solution, while elegant, does not always work at population scale, right? Creating a single platform to actually work, that to unify an extremely fragmented ecosystem is an extremely daunting and challenging task, right? So obviously, an alternate solution needs to be created, right? And the context of health, there are health and wellness consumers and the health and wellness platforms. Both of them are health and wellness providers. Both of them are which are connected via health and wellness platforms, right? So what if there was an alternative approach to solving this problem at scale, right? Which I'm going to sort of quickly jog through because this was already presented. What if we sort of split each of these, two-sided platforms, right? And actually sort of unbundle their experience end, which we call as the application platform, and the service end, which is called the provider platform, and put a public digital infrastructure in between, right? Now, obviously, this public digital infrastructure cannot be a platform, right? Because it becomes, once again, creates the same problem. It solves availability and all that, integration, etc., but introduces new challenges, right? You can't scale such a platform for a global scale or a population scale. Introduces security issues, introduces privacy issues because all data is flowing through that platform. Trust gets centralized, evolution of the system itself, right? Every single innovation being made has to be made on that digital infrastructure with, and it sort of, stifles innovation as well, right? And, we don't even need to mention the cost of maintenance, right? To create a population scale digital infrastructure. So is there an alternative way, right? One way is to sort of turn this digital infrastructure as a platform into digital infrastructure as a network, right? What we call as an open network ecosystem. Translated for health, and obviously, since all of these platforms are connected via a network, right, they all need to also understand the language each of them talks, right? That's why you need a communication protocol to enable these platforms to talk to each other, right? And once each of these platforms have implemented what you call as the protocol stack, right, or the protocol APIs, suddenly we have a network which doesn't have a center. It is open and inclusive by design. If you see that there is always a path from the application platform to any provider platform, right, through this network, right? Obviously, since also the computational load and the use cases suddenly have become unbundled, suddenly the cost also comes down, right? The acquisition cost, the consumer acquisition cost comes down for providers, the user acquisition cost comes down, the inventory or the business acquisition cost for applications come down, right? So this also suddenly reduces the cost, enables open competition and innovation as well. Now that, given that this entire ecosystem has opened up as a network, innovation can happen at either layer. Policies can be layered on top of this network, and then it also allows participation from big platforms and small platforms who can just plug into this infrastructure, right? Something which is very similar, we all know today, is just like our internet, right? We just have to connect to the internet and automatically we can discover other systems out there, right? So that is a general snapshot of the open network infrastructure, right? And these endpoints that we see are called network interfaces, right? And yeah, and this is the transaction fabric that we sort of, talk about when we are connecting healthcare platforms to each other, right? Now, if you apply a healthcare context on this entire ecosystem, you have healthcare providers, healthcare consumers, all of them talking to each other via a common protocol. That common protocol is called DHP, right? Right. Now, this, and as just like, the endpoints were called network interfaces, this will be called as a DHP network interfaces. now apply an India specific or Abdm specific policies on DHP, suddenly the whole API becomes UHI protocol, right? And the network becomes the UHI network, and the endpoints of these applications are called the unified health interface, right? Now, I think once we have a very high level view of the DHP specification, let's look at what are its components, right? So the DHP specification architecture consists of, or the UHI specification architecture. Let's talk about UHI more in more specificity. It consists of these 5 layers, right? It consists of a base network architecture containing a bunch of network actors. It contains UHI APIs. It contains the UHI schema. Then it has a bunch of transaction mechanisms and health specific extensions, right? I think given the paucity of time, I will focus mostly on the network actors, the APIs, and the schema. The transaction mechanisms and health specific extensions can actually be viewed in the DHP repository documentation itself. I think that we can probably we can cover in the forthcoming sessions, right, hosted by the NHA folks. Yeah, cool. So let's first look at what are the network actors that are UHI enabled, right? At its bare fundamental level, right, at the transaction layer, there are 4 main actors in a UHI enabled network. One is called the end user application, which is basically the equivalent of the consumer platform, which acquires consumers. There is a health service provider application that acquires bookings and sort of acquires businesses, right, and accepts bookings from consumer end user applications. And there's a gateway that facilitates the discovery of health service provider applications by end user applications. And there's a network registry that forms the trust infrastructure. It sort of acts as the public key infrastructure that stores the public keys of each of these gateways, end user applications, and health service providers, so that all the APIs that are called between the EUAs and the HSPAs are digitally signed, or dual digitally signed, in fact, right? Which means that a platform that has digitally signed an API call can the message is non-repudiable, right? You cannot fake it, you cannot change anything about it, and there is absolute incontrovertible proof that this message has come from the platform that has sent this that has called this API. So these are the 4 platforms. Let's now double click on each of these platforms and look at what their functionalities are. So let's first look at the end user applications, right? First of all, end user applications in a broad view, they are merely like supercharged browsers, right? They acquire customers, right? They acquire customers as their users. Okay, they don't maintain any active inventory of services, of doctors, or anything. They are as I said, right? They're like a browser that publishes information, right, sent from other platforms, right? And they provide very rich consumer focused experience, right? They could be chat based, they could be rich GUI based, or they could be even audio video based, like our Alexas, etc., right? They interface with the HSPAs and the gateways via UHI APIs to do what? To discover health and wellness products and services, to book such services, to view and track the fulfillments of these services. Like, for example, if I'm doing a live tracking of an ambulance, or if I'm if I'm doing a consultation or teleconsultation on call. So that sort of comes under the fulfillment of that network of that booking. And then it also allows to rate, and then it also allows us to contact support, right? So on the diagram on the right, as you see, the EUA is considered the entire box, right? It's not just the API, it is the entire cloud, right, that has implemented the consumer facing application. So multiple user applications like mobile phones, desktops, smartwatches, it could be even smart IoT devices like pacemakers and weighing machines, even those things can actually act as end user applications, right? So all of them implement a standard UHI API, right, as part of the UHI protocol stack, and they will be able to discover other platforms that are there on the network. Now, common applications or that can actually become EUAs could be aggregator applications, could be super apps like PhonePe, Paytm, etc. Like could be standalone platforms like Arogya Setu, Sanjeevani, etc. And consumer-facing chat bots like Telegram bots, WhatsApp bots. Even think about if you imagine a little bit, even non-healthcare, at least non-core healthcare websites, like could be like, healthcare specific blogs can even become end user applications, right? Consumer focused software utilities like, affiliate marketing widgets, browser extensions, those things can also become EUAs. And publicly accessible hardware utilities like, kiosks, etc., at common public locations can also act as end user applications that can allow healthcare consumer to access health and wellness services across the UHI network, right? So we saw the consumer side of the, let's now go to the provider side, right, of the healthcare provider side of the network, which is called the health service provider applications, or HSPAs. They do exactly the opposite of what the consumer applications do. The EUAs acquire consumers. Healthcare service providers acquire HSPAs acquire healthcare service providers, right, or health related businesses as users or services as users. They actually maintain a real inventory, an active inventory, right? And the experience that they provide to the end users are very service focused, or the service agent or the service the personnel focused experience, right, like doctors or ambulance drivers, etc., right? And they interface with the end user applications and the gateway via UHI APIs too, right? Now, what are the capabilities, typical capabilities of an HSPA, right? The prime capability of an HSPA is to publish their catalog of products, services, providers, and health professionals, right? They also provide the terms of service as machine readable, provider policies. They receive bookings or orders from product and services. They provide regular status updates for the fulfillment of a booking. They provide tracking information. They allow these bookings to be rated. They also provide support information when requested. So it sort of does all what a typical, healthcare related service or business does. All right. So that is the HSPAs, right? Typical examples of what HSPAs, who the platforms that can become HSPAs are the backends of most of the aggregator platforms like ORS, eSanjeevani, etc., right? Because if you look at the current scenario, we all have two-sided platforms, right? Okay, so if you were to convert a two-sided platforms into an HSPA, the backend of that becomes the HSPA, right? Because that is which stores the inventory and the business logic and all the order terms, etc., right? It could also be backends of standalone platforms. It could be enterprise backends of hospitals like like OpenMRS systems, etc. It could be also a simple service provider facing chatbots like Telegram bots and WhatsApp bots, which are customized for the service provider himself, right? It could also be small point of sale systems in clinics, right? So these are some examples of HSPAs. I'm sure, I think during the course of this hackathon, I think a lot more innovations, a lot more ideas could come out, right? Big platforms might even play both the roles, right? The HSPAs and EUAs, right? Right. So I think that covers the provider side of that. Now let's go one level deeper and look at the infrastructure layer of a UHI enabled network, right? So as you had seen earlier, there were two main entities forming the infrastructure layer of a UHI enabled network. One is the gateway, the other is the registry. So the UHI gateway, right, which are part of the UHI network infrastructure, they interface with both EUAs and HSPAs on both sides, right? So they enable discovery of HSPAs by EUAs. They broadcast search requests from EUAs to the HSPAs. They forward the search responses from HSPAs to EUAs, right? The reason why this gateway existed, it provides an equal opportunities for HSPAs to be discovered and respond and respond to search to these search requests, right? So that sort of allows a choice to the end consumer and also allows autonomy to the end service provider. Yeah. The second piece of infrastructure in the UHI network is the UHI registry, right? So the UHI registry is part of the UHI network infrastructure, right? What does that UHI registry enable? The UHI registry enables the permissioned onboarding of EUAs and HSPAs on the UHI network through a formal certification and compliance process. It interfaces with the end user applications, and please forgive the small typos there, the BAPs and the BPPCs and the BGs. They are the EUAs, the gateways, and the and the HSPAs, they enable the authenticated lookup of trusted platforms on the network. They act as a public key store for digitally signing and verification of transactions between network participants. They also allow the filtering of search, right, based on industry sector, a high level industry sector, country, and city, etc. So those are the four components of the UHI network, right? Now that we know the UHI network actors, now let's look at the UHI APIs themselves, right? What are those APIs? Now, a typical health and wellness service lifecycle, what we have observed is consists of four distinct stages, right? One is the discovery stage that allows the discovery of healthcare hospitals, clinics. It allows user to search by various symptoms. It allows them to browse various healthcare services. There allows you to search for diagnostic centers, blood banks, ambulances, category-based search, calendar-based search, and also allows the publication of various catalogs of healthcare service providers. These catalogs could range anywhere from a list of providers to a list of providers with their categories of services, list of providers with the category of services with the actual services themselves, also the calendar or the timings of those services and the nature of fulfillment itself, and along with the nature of payments and the terms of payment as well, along as part of their entire catalog, right? So that sort of it allows the end user to search, right, and the provider to publish their catalog. So this is the stage where discovery happens. Then once the discovery is done, when I have found out, if I was the end user, once I have found the service that I'm looking for, right, service or services that I'm looking for, I proceed to book, right? And when that booking happens, just sorry guys, just 1 second. I'm my laptop is a little out of use. Just let me just put my charge over here. Just give me a second, guys. Sorry about that. Yeah. So once we finish the discovery of products and services, we move into the booking stage. This is the stage where the actual booking of appointment takes place. Where sometimes you may even need to share your medical records in order for booking to take place. And in this stage is where the terms of service of the health service provider gets shared with the end user application. It also allows you to sort of book follow-up appointments for earlier bookings, etc. It also allows you to book for medical logistics like ambulances for you to pick up and drop to the nearest hospital, etc. Right. So that's the booking stage. Once that booking stage, the end of the book, the confirmation of the booking, right, and an appointment being scheduled marks the end of the booking stage of the entire health and wellness service life cycle. Then once the booking is confirmed, we move into the fulfillment stage of the health and wellness service life cycle. This is the actual real-time fulfillment of the service that you booked for, which means that in this stage, the actual teleconsultation happens, or the physical consultation happens, or even a group consultation can happen. And this is where your orders can typically be rescheduled or cancelled. And more importantly, any status updates regarding any order changes at either end can happen. Like, for example, the doctor may be late, or the doctor may be arriving, or the doctor may be waiting, maybe your the consultation has started. Those kind of any sort of status updates that need to be sent from the health service provider to the end user application happens in this stage, right? Even tracking happens at this stage, right? So and the last stage, once the actual booking or the consultation is over, or the ambulance pickup and drop is over, then you move into the post fulfillment stage, where you're providing feedback, where you're providing where the health professional can possibly upload test reports, etc. Sometimes it could also happen where there could be grievances from the end consumer, which may need to be redressed. Right? And it could also happen that at this stage, in terms of like some cash on delivery or type of orders, your post payment, postpaid payment also might happen at this stage. So these are the four stages of a typical health and wellness service lifecycle.
Hey, may I request somebody to mute their mic?
Ravi, I'm muting all, so you unmute after that, okay?
Sure, Abhijit. Thank you. Cool.
Yeah, Ravi, you can carry on.
Yeah, got it. Cool. Thanks a lot, Abhijit. Yeah. Okay, so now that we know the 4 stages of a typical health service life cycle, let's double click on each of these stages and look at the interactions that happens between each of those stages. So what we have observed is that any consumer provider interaction can be unbundled into a set of 10 request and callback API pairs, right? Bear in mind, these are purely relevant only to the booking or the transaction that happens between a consumer and provider. Obviously, there are a lot more APIs, right? There could be open data API, there could be grievance redressal APIs, there could be, what do you say, policy APIs, and so many other APIs that will facilitate such transactions and provide trust in such transactions. But the core transaction itself, right, or between a consumer and a provider, can be unbundled into 10 request callback API pairs, right? As you see, there are 10 APIs, each with their corresponding callback APIs. This was done specifically for a reason, because if you look at the real world interactions, almost all interactions are async. Just because you try to confirm an order, let's say if there is a huge heavy load, right, especially during the pandemic, etc., right, if there is a load, you might not get a confirmation of a booking immediately, right? That is why the async nature of these APIs helps in deferred confirmations, deferred initializations, or deferred search responses. Sometimes somebody would say, okay, I am looking for, a diagnostic center, right? It could so happen that a diagnostic center might respond later, right? It might not say, okay, I am available immediately, but it says, okay, give me some time, I'll come get back to you on this. That is why a callback sometimes is very useful, especially at scale when there are too many APIs. There's an extremely heavy load, and in a diverse ecosystem where not everything is available at the moment, such asynchronicity helps, right, in managing those kind of use cases as well. Hence, you will see all these APIs have a corresponding callback API as well. So as you can see, there is one API for discovery, which is search, with a corresponding callback call on search. There's one API called booking that allows the code calculation or the dynamic offerings to be selected, and then the initialization, which is the draft booking, which is created just before confirmation. I mean, this is the stage where you actually share all the health documents, etc. And then a confirmation API which allows you to where you provide the proof of payment, etc., and actually confirm your booking, right? Then there are 4 fulfillment APIs, which allows for status updates, to update an active booking, right? Say maybe you want to reschedule an existing booking, or you want to change the location where you are going for a vaccination, etc. Those kind of things. Allows you to live track certain types of use cases like ambulance services or organ tracking, etc. Those kind of things. And then obviously cancellation of a booking once it has been made. And the post fulfillment contains 2 APIs that allows you to rate and allow you to fetch the support information of these APIs. Now, one question that usually comes up is that, hey, there's no payment here, right? So this is something which I want to address beforehand, because payments is a solved problem. It already has existing payment solutions like payment gateways, UPI, etc., to facilitate these payments. Hence, these APIs don't facilitate payments directly. They allow the transmission of the payment terms from the provider to the consumer, and once the payment terms are received by the end user application, the payment actually happens on a different infrastructure itself. So I think we may talk about this more, but we can first, let's go through each of these APIs and see what they enable. Right. So let's first look at the discovery flows, right? The search and the on search APIs, right? So on one hand, you have the end user application where the consumer says, I want this, right? Things that could typically be searched for are, maybe the category of services. I am looking for oncologists, or I am looking for dentists, or something like that. Okay. I could also look at in the terms of what sort of health service type, health service category that I'm searching for. Like say, I am searching for ambulance services, I am searching for diagnostic services, I'm searching for consultation services and blood banks and so on and so forth, right? And then you could also specify who I want to, I'm searching. Maybe I have a membership or something like a card with a certain healthcare institution. I can probably search by the name of that institution itself. Maybe I'm searching for Apollo clinics because I can get reimbursements or something like that. Okay. Then I could also search by location, like I am here, what are the services around me? Right? That's a very location aware search that you can happen. And then obviously they could have other search parameters like language, could be symptoms, could be so many other additional information that you could help or you could pass to help the HSPAs identify and return the right catalog, right? Now, the way the search happens is a very unique way. The search doesn't happen directly on an HSPA. The search happens on the gateway of the UHI network, right? What happens is whenever you do a search, the gateway does a lookup, right, based on the context of that search. We will cover the context later. But the gateway does a lookup of that search on the network registry that we talked about earlier and broadcasts that search to the relevant HSPAs, right? That in a way that allows democratization of search because it allows an equal opportunity for HSPAs to respond to a search request and does not leave exclusivity to the EUA, right? So on the right side, as you can see, HSPAs can have could be hospital aggregators, ambulance service providers, clinics, or and labs and and blood banks, etc. Those can individually respond with OnSearch with using the OnSearch API, and the gateway forwards that OnSearch back to the EUA. It is up to the EUA to bundle those many catalogs that are being returned by the HSPA and provide that unified experience, right, to the end user. So that's a sort of a design autonomy that is given to the end user applications, right? And the things that are typically sent in an OnSearch are a list of providers, obviously, right? And if the location and their locations, if applicable. Obviously, for teleconsultation, location does not matter, but in case of physical consultations and diagnostics, etc., you will need to send the locations as well. Then it also sends a list of services and products, and along with a service calendar. Now, one disclaimer I would want to make right at the beginning is these are not the actual schema attributes that are found in the DHP specification. There are more structured schema attributes. This is more for a conceptual understanding of the DHP APIs and the data that is being sent in these APIs. So for more information on the API, please visit the specification page. I think the link will be shared after the call, and look at the actual attributes as well. Right. So I think once the discovery flows is end, we enter the booking flows, right? So as you remember, booking had three.
One question. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Sure. I mean, are we open to ask to a Q&A session, Vivek? I think that's moderator's call.
Okay.
No, we have actually kept a Q&A session for at the end. So you can ask all your questions at the end of the session.
Cool. So I'll try to quickly wrap this up. I think I want to keep as much time as possible for the Q&A as well. So let me just quickly run through the rest of the APIs as well. So the select and non-select allows the consumer to select the provider, the products or services that he wants, and the quantity, like quantity meaning because obviously, say if I'm getting vaccination for 3 people in my family, so I might want to have 3 vaccinations, right? So, and also it also allows the consumer to apply any offers that the HSPA may have published when publishing their catalog, any add-ons in case they need in terms of in this healthcare services. Maybe like I want a diagnostic service with a follow-up consultation, right? Is like an add-on, right? So those kind of things can be done during the select and the HSPA returns a quote, right? An equivalent quote for the products and the offers and the add-ons that have been selected by the EUA. Optionally, it could also send some promotional add-ons, like say, for example, for a new user or a new booking, it may send, okay, I am giving you a free consultation after a diagnostic, right? So it could also add these promotional add-ons. And if you notice, this is the place where that async behavior becomes very useful, right? It could so happen that, okay, I received your quote, and then now I am publishing my own set of add-ons for your request, and then I'm sending you a dynamic quote, right? So this sort of really this is the place where a lot of business level innovation or service level innovation can happen, right? What once you receive a product and or a service and an offer, then what can you send in return? It can be dynamic as well. It doesn't always have to be static, right? Then let's move on to the booking flow. This is where the order gets initialized. It doesn't get created. It gets agreed upon, mutually agreed upon by the EUA and the HSPA. This sort of in this flow, the consumer selects the provider he wants. Obviously, the products and the services, the quantity, the offer, and the add-ons which were previously agreed upon in the earlier APIs, and the quote that was agreed. It also the consumer also provides their billing details and the nature of fulfillment, right? How I want to be serviced, right? At this point, you can also say, okay, I want a consultation, but I also want an ambulance pickup to the nearest hospital or something like that, right? Those details can also be provided in the init on init API calls, and as a response, the HSPA returns a quote, payment terms, the fulfillment terms, the cancellation terms, return and replacement terms, etc., as objects inside the on-init API. This sort of creates that final order which will ultimately get confirmed, right? The final booking that will finally get created at the provider HSPA end. Right? And as I had mentioned earlier, this does not give you there are no APIs for payment. The HSPA sends the payment terms so that the EUA can invoke the necessary payment flow at their end in order to facilitate that payment, right? Whether it is through a prepayment, whether it is connected to a payment aggregator, or whether it is using UPI, or whether it is simply cash at the end of consultation, right? So those kind of terms get sent back. And then other things like fulfillment terms, who is going to be your doctor, or when is your scheduled appointment actually scheduled? Just because you selected a particular time does not mean that you may actually get that time, right? For slot, maybe an optional other slot may be returned during that time. Terms of cancellation, how long can you terms of cancel, and return and replacements generally don't apply in this scenario, so you can ignore that. And then finally, let's say this is the confirm in the confirm API call. Once the consumer has agreed to the terms, right, it provides, and let's say the terms also require the end consumer to pay before he confirms an order. This confirm API also carries a proof for the promise of payment that will be made to the HSPA, and the HSPA finally goes ahead and confirms the order and creates a booking and sends back that order object, right, in the on confirm API that finally the EUA renders as a successful appointment booked, right? Bear in mind, all of this is happening between server to server. It is not happening from client to client. Something which I had missed mentioning earlier. This is a server to server protocol that allows the design or the experience innovation to happen independent of the transactions that are happening, right? So which means that, if I wanted to provide any, say, for example, I did a search for a doctor, and that doctor right at the moment of, say, confirmed, canceled his availability. Internally, it can fire another search call without even informing the user. Internally, it can also fire other search call, select an init, and say, provide an alternate option to the consumer saying, hey, this guy was not available, but I have gone ahead and say, this is an option for you for another doctor, equally qualified, whatever, and bit remaining, depending upon your search and tailor-made to your search request as well. Would you like to confirm that as well, right? So this allows a lot of dynamic interactions to happen between the EUA and the HSPAs internally, and allow a smooth, very integrated, rich experience to be rendered at the end consumer end. So this sort of concludes the booking flows. And then we enter, once the order is sort of confirmed, the fulfillment flows allows the end, starts off with obviously regular status updates. This allows the HSPA to push various status updates using unsolicited on status API calls. It doesn't always necessarily need a status API to be called for the on status API to actually return. HSPA can actually call unsolicited on status APIs to the EUA every time the state of the order changes at their backend, right? So like, for example, the ambulance has left the hospital, the ambulance is on the way. All those things are asynchronous on status calls without the EUA explicitly requesting the status call. EUA can also explicitly request in case it wants the latest copy of the order and call the status call, and as a response, the HSPA will send back the latest copy of the booking. Right, and in the fulfillment flows, the update and the this also allow the end consumer to update, right, their existing booking. Right, they could also add more services to their. Let's say I have done I've created a diagnostic booking, and then I want to add a couple more things. I want to add a follow-up consultation, or I want to add the number of tests that I have. Right, and it also allows you to change your billing details or your fulfillment details, etc. Maybe I have booked for something, but I want to reschedule my appointment, right? Those kind of things. And the HSPA sends back the updated order with any sort of obviously updated. I mean, it's not always that the HSPA is going to agree to change it. So it also sends updated payment terms, updated fulfillment terms, updated quote, etc., along with cancellation terms and return terms, etc., if applicable on on that update. Finally, this is a simple API. This allows the EUA to send the order ID, and the HSPA can send back a tracking URL. Now, that tracking could be a live tracking of an ambulance, or it could be something else as well. I think I would leave that to the imagination of the developer over here. And then finally, this is simple enough, self-explanatory. It allows the EUA to cancel using the cancel API, cancel an order, and also by providing a cancellation reason. And the HSPA can optionally sort of either accept the cancellation and return back a canceled booking ID, and then it sort of the order gets canceled, right? So once the fulfillment flows are done, we enter the post-fulfillment stage. There are two APIs, rating, which start with rating, which allows the consumer to rate various rateable entities. It is not always the provider or the doctor that needs to be rated. A lot of entities in a typical ecosystem can be rated. It could be the quality of customer support that you received. It could also be the vehicle or the ambulance that you traveled in, right? Or the behavior of the agent that was talking to you, right? The driver who was talking to you. A lot of things can actually be rated, and the APIs allow the EUA to rate various rateable entities at the HSPA. It is up to the HSPA to provide what all entities in their ecosystem can be rated, right? And optionally, it can also send back a feedback URL that allows the EUA to provide explicit feedback regarding that booking itself. And lastly, the support APIs allow the EUA to fetch the support information, right? So it doesn't directly have any support APIs. Bear in mind, okay? This only allows you to fetch the support information so that your support flow can be initiated. A typical support channels are phone numbers, emails, or a chat-based URL, right? There could be more. It could also be a callback, which could be enabled, but I think that's not supported in the specification as of now. We might look into adding that later. But the support APIs allow the consumer to fetch any support information that the HSPA had. It says, I want to connect with your customer support, please provide me. So the HSPA can provide the phone number, email, chat URL, each, or it could also send all of them, right? And depending upon what it has received, the consumer app or the end user application can invoke the appropriate flow in their user interface. So that concludes the 10 APIs. Okay. Now let's quickly jump into the UHI schema, the actual schema of the APIs. The UHI defines a schema to describe any sort of consumer provider interaction, the core components of any consumer provider interaction. So as you can see, there are top level schemas like intent, catalog, order, etc. There are mid-level schema like provider, fulfillment, payments, etc., which form the components of intent, catalog, etc. Then there are primitive schema like location, person, and descriptor, which are sort of used everywhere. And there are some very primitive data types, string, arrays, and numbers. This we all know about. And And the UHI and the DHP specification as well use certain global standards and specifications that sort of are globally recognized and are interoperable. Open API, some IETF standards for signatures, some ISO formats for date, time, and country codes, etc. So those are the sort of schema. More to sort of view more information on the schema, you can visit the the DHP specification or the UHI specifications that will be shared with you. Just maybe taking a look at a typical packet structure of a UHI API call. It basically contains 4 components. One is a signature, right, which allows the caller to digitally sign each API using their private keys. It option and all those APIs that are going via the gateway, which is basically the search API, the gateway also signs that API using the X gateway authorization header. And the request body itself contains 2 sort of encapsulating components. One is the context and one is the message. The context carries very high level messaging context, like which city are you operating in, which country is this API being called in, what is the domain of operation, whether it is diagnostics, medical service, those the high level service category codes can be sent in the context, so that the gateway doesn't broadcast it to too many platforms, right? That is like again counterproductive, because how will we handle that kind of an information load, right? We want very not extremely narrow but not very broad types of searches. So the context header also allows you to sort of slightly narrow down your search. Like if I am searching for a doctor in Delhi, I don't need to broadcast to a platform that has services in Chennai. So those kind of things can be handled in the context. The message carries the actual request specific context. So the message JSON is specific to whether you are doing a search, whether doing a select or a track or a support, etc. Those kind of the contents of the message vary with the API that you are calling. Right now, let's look at certain very important objects or schema that frequently appear in the UHI specification. Right, as I had mentioned earlier, the context schema carries the header information about the package being sent across the network. All UHI API calls must contain UHI transaction API calls must contain this object. The context object contains, as I said, right, domain, industry sector category code, country codes, city codes, the registered ID, or we call as the subscriber ID of the EUA, the EUA callback URL, the register ID of the HSPA. If you're doing a direct call to the HSPA, it will contain the HSPA IDs and the callback URLs as well. One thing which I sort of briefly mentioned is that it is only the search request that goes via the gateway, right? All other APIs, select, init, confirm, status, update, track, cancel, rating, support, all of those APIs are peer-to-peer directly between the EUA and the HSPA. This is a very important point to note, because the search needs to be democratized, right? Discoverability is key, right? So that is why the gateway comes in place. After the search discovery is done, you really don't need the gateway to know the order details and etc. and actually patient specific details. That sort of allows privacy to be maintained, right, between the participants of that transaction and not any sort of entity in the middle, right, which is a very fundamental principle of also decentralization. Right? Other data that is being sent is obviously the timestamp when the request was generated. And you can also specify how long is my request going to be valid for. Given that there's an async API, I don't want, like to fire a search API right now and expect an answer like, tomorrow morning, right? It might not even be relevant. It might be a moot point at that time. So I also can specify the TTL of the risk request. And on the flip side, even the provider can say, okay, I am sending you this calendar, but this calendar is only valid for 24 hours. It doesn't mean that this calendar is the actual calendar. So it also allows the HSPA to specify how long a particular or callback or an object is valid for, so that the EUA can recall the HSPA if it expires. Then two very important objects for discovery is the intent and the catalog schema, right? The intent object describes the intent, declarative information about the consumer's want, right? It typically a search happens, okay, I want this, right? But it not on, but the intent captures a lot more information than just simply what you're searching for. Okay, the intent object can not only search the product or the service that the consumer wants to order, but it also captures the provider, right? I want to avail services from X provider, right? It also allows you to provide, allows you to specify where, who I want that services from. It also allows the consumer to declare how I would like to be fulfilled, right? I would like to an online consultation. I would like to be done this consultation to happen offline. I would like to sort of, add any sort of I would like to have a group consultation or something like that, right? Anything, how I would want, I would like my, I mean, uh, I'm a working person. I want my service to be rendered and in the evening, right? Those things I can actually mention in my search intent, right? Where I want, sorry, where the location, where my, I would like to be serviced, right? I don't want to be searching somewhere far away. I want some services to be nearby me. When I would like that fulfillment to start and end. Those kind of things can be actually declared in the intent. It's a very powerful narrative that allows, instead of the consumer searching, it's the consumers declaring, right? On the other side, right, the catalog object is the response to the intent, right? So the publisher, sorry, the HSPA publishes, okay, some declarative information about what he has, right? This is what I got from you as a search intent. This is what I have that best matches your search intent, right? Those things could be a list of providers that can service the consumer's intent. Those providers, bear in mind, does not need to be an exact match, right? They can say, okay, I have these providers that are exact matches to your solution. It can also provide additional information like, okay, there are two more providers, maybe you would like to avail their services too, right? For example, this is a consultation, there is an insurance product which I am pushing, right? It allows for these dynamic catalogs to be pushed, right? Also the actual products and services offered by each provider that best match the consumer's intent, the locations where those products and services can be found or availed, the times there where those products and services are available and accessible, and a lot more. It also allows you to, send your payment terms and etc. right at the beginning. A lot more things can be done, but at a high level, these are the most important data points that are being sent in the intent and catalog object. Now, as I said, as you see the note below, not all of the information needs to be sent for every single use case, right? A subset of the also can be sent, right? Which means that when you're doing a search intent, it's not necessary that the response will always contain providers, products, location, and times. And one HSPA could simply send a list of providers. The other HSPA could send the providers plus categories. Third could send the providers plus categories plus services, and so on and so forth, right? So that sort of allows that autonomy of catalogs to be present on the HSPA end. And the order schema is basically equivalent, which creates the booking, right? The final booking that that happens when the service is confirmed, right? It typically contains the ID of the order, the details of the provider, the products and the services that are being ordered, what is the total value, what is basically the agreed upon payment terms, what are the terms of service and the terms of payment, status of payment, etc. So these are all conceptual sort of models of what the schemas are. Bear in mind, these are not representations of the actual schema. While they all contain all of this information, they do contain a lot more information in a structured manner as well. Yeah, so I think that sort of concludes the conceptual part of the UHI APIs. Now let's see how those UHI APIs can actually, how can they actually be enabled in a typical UHI enabled application, right? This is the last stage of this section. Imagine a situation where there is a person called Raj and his family.
Ravi, sorry, if you can just run through this a little quickly. I think we're running short of time. So
Yeah, I'm just quickly running through this. Yeah. So Raj has a UHI enabled application. They log in via typical, login interfaces using email IDs or Aadhaar number, etc. And then he opens the application, searches for products and services, and then he adds, in case if he wants to also add, the name of the doctor, in case he's searching for a specific kind of healthcare professional. that sort of, and once he clicks on find doctor, the UHI so UA fires a search request, where the gateway looks up, using the context of the search request, the gateway looks up the registry and broadcasts the search request to multiple HSPAs. The HSPAs asynchronously respond with on search APIs through the gateway, which forwards them back to the UA. The UA compiles the lists and sends it to the UI. As you can see on the right, it shows the list of doctors that are available. Now once that I have the catalogs of each provider, I can directly call the UHI HSPA application with another search request that allows me to fetch a deeper catalog of that specific doctor, right? In that case, I get the timings and the calendar of that doctor using the on search API. The select API allows me to select the specific slot and allows me to fetch the total quotes. Right now, this quote could be from from that specific HSPA. Now, the same doctor could be available on multiple HSPAs as well to provide multiple quotes as well. In that case, I call the select API and say, okay, I want to avail the services of so and so doctor from so and so platform. In the on select, I get the actual total quote, and then I also provide my billing details, and in case I also want to upload any sort of medical record, etc., I can link those flows as well in this flow in this stage of APIs. In the on it, I get the final terms, right, as we had talked about, right, the final terms of the order. And then if those terms require me to make any payment, I make that payment using the checkout phase. And once I make that payment, I pass that proof of payment, which is the transaction ID or any sort of signature from the payment gateway through the confirm API, and the HSPA verifies that whether the payment has been received. In the on confirm API, it sends me back a confirmed booking, which is rendered on the screen. And finally, the HSPA sends the latest status of the appointment via the on status API call, which sort of continuously gets updated every time the status is updated. And the last status update carried the link of the teleconsultation, and the user can click on that and actually have that consultation, right? And progressively all the other status updates can actually be sent via its unsolicited on status API calls. That is pretty much it, guys. I think this is just a snapshot of a full-fledged UHI enabled ecosystem. I don't think we should be covering that right now. I think we can cover this in future sections as well, but I would like to sort of quickly move towards the Q&A session as soon as possible. I think we have one more agenda regarding the UHI gateway and a demonstration of transaction on UHI. Over to you, Vivek. Thanks a lot. I had to rush a lot through this, but that's okay. I think I didn't realize. Sorry about that. But yeah, over to you. Thanks a lot.
No, not already. I mean, there was a lot to cover and a lot to consume as well. And thank you so much for covering it, covering the breadth of it in such a quick, concise manner. And I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions on your sections. Yeah.
I'm just stopping my screen share.
Yes, please. Naresh, if you can just bring up the slides for the rest of the section. So I know it seems like a lot in terms of what has been described, but these protocols have been very well thought through. And once you start implementing them, you will see how it fits into your respective health applications that you're developing. In order to realize the actual build of the protocol, build of UHI, Amod, who is a part of the LTI team, the tech team, has been leading the tech team and building and essentially putting the bare bones of UHI together. To speak more about how the UHI gateway is actually designed and how the transaction flows on the UHI gateway work, Amod will be presenting the next section. Over to you, Amod.
Hey, thanks, Vivek. Indeed, it was good sessions earlier with ACO sir starting and clearing out the vision, and I think ED sir giving out the actual picture of UHI and all these things with Ravi explaining the protocol. I think that now it's time to go into the technical deep dive. Yeah, a lot of theory we have done. I think most of us here are eager to develop something. And so let's move on to technical. Farooq sir, so Farooq sir is leading, he's a senior architect from NHA side. He
Yeah, Amod,
is also,
yeah,
yes,
Amod, we
yes,
can
Farooq sir.
continue. Continue.
Okay,
If there is, we
okay,
can.
okay,
Let's continue.
okay. Yeah. So, Naresh, can you go to that diagram directly? Next, I will come back to this. Uh, so this is a sequence diagram which Ravi has somewhat already explained, but I'll just go through it quickly so as to understand the sequence. So EU is nothing but your mobile application or a client application which searches for some or the other service provider. um, if you see the lookup stream there, where whenever a search hits the UHI gateway, it will go to the lookup in the network registry. So network registry is nothing but a digital registry, um, where all the HSPA, EUA, as well as gateways are as participants are registered. That is something which is very important here, because whenever a search is hit, it is sent to all the participant providers to get a list of your required intent, and those that list will be returned from the HSPA after doing their own logic. So then next we'll go to the search, where the HSPA platform accepts the search intent, and they will look for whatever they have. For example, like if I'm looking for a cardiologist, and if there are like 10 HSPAs which are registered with me, and if two of them don't have a cardiologist, so two of them will return an empty string, empty message, or probably will not return anything, whereas the HSPA having the cardiologist will return a list of doctors who specialize in cardiology. So that is how the sequence diagram goes. um, we can take up the questions later on, but this is pretty much straightforward. So we have displayed HSPA 1 as well as 2 in the multiple things. Naresh, next slide. No, next one. One more, one more, one more. So coming to the architecture of the gateway built by NHA as a part of UHI construct, we have, if you see, this is a block diagram. So as Ravi has also mentioned, the initial search, that is the discovery phase, where we try to get the list of the doctors, that is passed to the gateway. To be specific, from a security side, the gateway does not know what intent has been passed. What it does is just fetches all the HSPAs, the list of HSPAs from the network registry, and it will broadcast that intent message to all of the HSPAs which are registered with the network registry. So that is the initial call whenever someone tries to search for a service provider. And then again, as Ravi mentioned, async API. So let me just talk a bit about async API, as this is a technical session. So um, uh, i- what do we mean by async API? Probably most of you know, but just to clarify and set the context. So whenever we use a REST API call, the REST API is a pair of request and response. So whenever you send a REST API call, you are waiting, or the connection is open till you receive a response from the server, right? Here the search and on search together make a pair of an async API, where whenever you try to search for something by calling the search API, the intent or the search message has been sent um, to the required receiver, and that person will only send a response saying that your message is correct and an acknowledge a message, and that is something we call as an ACK. So whenever you're trying to send any message on this async API pattern, we are sending only a acknowledgement or a negative acknowledgement as a response to the request. So that is something we should keep in mind here. It may happen as being in an async nature, the on search API being called may take time, so where the TTL will come in. So you can set a a time frame where um, the number of responses coming in on the on search could be limited. So for example, like if there are 10 HSPAs, out of that 8 returned you something and 2 were late to return you something, so probably you can set a TTL about 8 and you can use those results and send it ahead. So that is something which I wanted to talk about, an async API. It is a very important concept to this whole technical environment about UHI gateway and HSPA and EUA. The slide said it's a hybrid pattern based gateway. I'll just like to explain one or two points here. So initially, we thought about a lot of patterns which fit into this. Of course, there was the DHP community who have also given up with this pattern. So this pattern we came up with was the registry, pure registry pattern, where there are multiple digital registries, and the HSPA and the EUA would directly contact the registries for their required information, and then they can interact with each other. So if you see in this hybrid pattern, we are having the network registry here. Of course, if you remember the first diagram where the whole ABDM ecosystem is set with the UHI layer in between, we have the other registries and all the, or we call as them the ABDM building blocks, that is ABHA, HFR, HPR, where Praveen sir and Kiran sir and Avijit sir have already mentioned all these things. So eventually they will interact here. So for now, in the reference application, we are interacting with the ABHA a building block, and we are interacting with the HPR building block, because these both have the digital registries where HPR is the health provider registry, where the doctor's information is stored. Let me put it this way: verified doctor information is stored. Whereas on the ABHA side, that is the citizen information or the health ID, um, which government is providing. Yeah, can we, Farooq sir, you want to add anything on this?
No, Amod. Please proceed.
Okay, okay, okay. Next slide. So I skipped the first slide because that is about the discovery service. So from the technical perspective, we decided to go with Java Web Flux, non-blocking calls. Very important when you see uh, at the scale at which this application or this gateway is going to be utilized. So we evaluated a lot of technologies, and Java Webflux seemed to be the appropriate choice for this. Apart from this, we are using Spring Boot for the REST API calls. And yeah, so this is the architecture, which is the actual architecture of the gateway, which will be hosted by UHI. It is there on the sandbox. Probably most of you are aware of the sandbox, and those who are not aware, there is a sandbox website where you can register yourself. And someone was asking whether this gateway is public or API is public. Yes, it is on there on sandbox. There are certain steps of registration you need to follow in order to use the gateway. So if you see this diagram, there are multiple components here. So the gateway is nothing but an API gateway. So currently we are using Spring Cloud Gateway to route the incoming messages to the HSPAs or the EUAs. The discovery block you see here, it is a microservice. We decided to go with this pattern because, as I said, the scale is very large. So if you see, if 80 crore people are eligible to use this service, then even 1% or 5% of them is like 5 lakh people. So if 5 lakh people are going to be there concurrently, we need a large, we need a good capacity server, as well as we need to think about scaling and resiliency and um, all the regular stuff, and how we can, give the best service or the best experience to the citizen as well as the provider. So if you see the discovery part, we have separated out from the Spring Cloud Gateway in order to scale, where tomorrow if we put it on containers, it would be able to handle the traffic or the scale that we are looking at. So I have marked all the and in the process of how the HSPAs and the EUAs call. So initially, whenever the gateway receives a search call from the EUA, it will be routed to the discovery microservice. The discovery microservice will look up for the network registry for the different HSPAs. Then the discovery service itself will call the HSPAs, asking them that do you have this requirement, and the HSPA will again come back on the on search, and the discovery service will handle the message ID or the transaction ID, and based on that, the incoming on search messages would be routed to the asking EUA. Tomorrow we have a session with EUA and HSPA reference applications. So currently, I'll just give a background there that we are having a client server application for EUA and a client server pattern for the HSPA, where the servers are hosted applications and the client is the front end. It could be anything tomorrow, like mobile app, web app, or any other touch point in that system. This is about the diagram. Yeah, can you go to the next slide? Um, so if you see, Ravi has already explained these things. So the register and subscribe APIs belong to the network registry. That is somewhere the participants come and with the public private key would subscribe there. So the signed headers is an important aspect, um, which where that identifies whether the incoming call to the gateway or the HSPA or to the UA, I mean all the participants, is it a legitimate call or not. So this is the first layer of security which we provide. um, then we have the search and the on search. So these two searches are there because as I said that we have two components which we call as gateway, the routing, the gateway API gateway, and um, the discovery service. Similarly, if you see the flow, it goes to register subscribe where the participant is there. Then the registered participant can search for required provider services. Then the gateway will pass it on to the registered HSPAs. The registered HSPAs will reply back to the gateway with the list of services available, and the gateway will forward it to the EUA, and that is how the flow goes. Farooq sir, you want to add anything?
No, you're done, Amar?
Yeah, that is the last slide, right?
Yeah. So I would like request all the participants to go to the GitHub. So whatever the Amod has told, so and from the gateway perspective, so the source code is there, like including the documentation as well as the API documentations are there. So this will be a very good place to like enhance your knowledge on the network registry and the discovery part of the UHI gateway.
Yeah, so just one thing to add here, I will be sharing the Postman collection soon, like by tomorrow. I will host it on the GitHub UHI GitHub page only, so you guys can download that Postman collection and probably try it out. Yeah, before the hackathon, we will be providing all the necessary support from the technical side to you. So yeah, I think we are done. Any question? Vivek, you can take it over.
Thank you, Amod. Thank you. Thank you. So, as Amod was talking about, these APIs and all that, these are the actual implementation. This is what you're using. Either in the hackathon, if you choose to be a part of the hackathon, or as a part of the sandbox, while you're integrating.
Vivek, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
There seems to be some noise coming from someone.
Avijit sir, can you mute the other participants, please?
Ved, if you can please mute yourself. Yeah, right. I think it's seems to be fine now. So just very quickly, I think the documentation on the UHI gateway and the APIs is available or will be available shortly on the sandbox. The GitHub links are there for both DHP and UHI. So please do go and check them out. Before we
Vivek,
jump into
Vivek,
yes.
I can see already some questions asking for links to the GitHub page. Amod, वो UHI GitHub page को तो अभी paste कर दो यार यहाँ पे straight away.
I am doing the same thing, sir. I'm
Yeah.
just giving it.
Thanks.
Right, sir.
Go ahead.
So before we jump into the question answers, just want to quickly let you all know about the agenda for tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be mainly looking at the functional flows from both the EUA and the HSP end, and then also be looking at how the reference applications that have been built by NHA have been built. We'll have code walkthroughs. A very important session for the ones who are considering doing teleconsultation on UHI is the session on the WebRTC implementation done by NHA, wherein NHA has taken open source WebRTC and implemented it, and essentially which enables interoperability with respect to video and audio on the UHI gateway, through the UHI gateway. So without wasting more time, would invite questions now to keep this in an orderly manner. Would request people to use the raise hand function. And Priyanka, if you can please moderate this session, that will be great.
Sure, Vivek.
So folks, if you have any questions, please use the raise hand function, and Priyanka will call out your name, and then the appropriate person will answer those questions.
You know, there were already some questions posted on the chat. Maybe we can start with them also, right?
So yes, sir, we can start with the questions that were posted on the chat. Somebody has asked, it's Saurav Raj. He is asking, can we query the verified list of facilities and care types provided by each of the facilities? And Farooq, sir?
Yeah. Yeah, currently, currently we do not have the HFR, like health facility registry, but the thing is that you can query the health professional registry.
Oh, see the.
Yeah. So just
go ahead.
So basically, so what Farooq sir meant was that we have the facilities, but the APIs are not exposed publicly right now. But for the professional registry, the APIs are publicly exposed, and you can go to the HPR website, and you can try them out there.
In continuation to the same question is also asking that are transport ambulance providers captured within this framework? That means in any of the registries.
This presently, no.
So
See,
transport.
I think
this question a little bit.
Yeah, Ravi, go ahead. Go ahead. I mean, I was
just wanted
you should
I have
respond.
a follow up on this. Yeah. So let me just see if I understood Mr. Saurav Raj correctly. Mr. Saurav, are you asking if the transport ambulance providers can also publish their services on this network, or is there something more that you are asking, where are they also part of some registry or something like that? I just wanted some clarity on that question in case before I answer you appropriately. Can Mr. Saurabh sort of, maybe is it possible for Saurabh to sort of unmute and sort of elaborate their question if they are on call?
If he's not around, then I think Ravi, you should just go ahead and capture it.
Yeah. So just to just for everybody aware there, yes, of course, ambulance providers are also captured within the exact same framework, exact same API specification. There is absolutely no change
in the APIs or the schema for an ambulance provider, the schema for a consultation provider, an ambulance provider, or a diagnostics provider. The schema has been designed in such a way that it sort of comes out as the same schema. The runtime JSON that comes in the API are the same. So all you need to do is implement the same 10 APIs and publish your catalog of ambulance services. Automatically, your ambulance transport service will be discoverable by end user applications who have also implemented the same APIs. Yeah. And if you want to look at the specification, I think the ambulance service API example, the use cases have been captured in the DHP specs repository. I think you should definitely take a look at that.
Just to conclude what Ravi said, in conceptual level and in the API, there is a capability to query all the facilities that UHI will enable eventually. Right now, but it is WIP. That's why you will see these APIs coming up in the future soon. But yes, any kind of facility, including lab, diagnostic service providers, radiology lab, hospital, clinics, including the ambulance service provider, can be listed and can be searched through the UHI network.
Just want to add to that. That does not stop you from implementing the APIs. It's the same set of APIs. Okay. It's just that maybe if an end user application has not been designed to sort of capture the ambulance booking flows, it may not be able to render the appropriate flow when you offer your services. But that also does not stop any end user application to be designed in a very generic sort of cross-functional way to capture both sorts of user experience. Given the catalog structure and the fulfillment structure, all of them are same. It is possible to create a generic UI to capture both sort of services. So just currently the what I understand, and Priyanka, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the NHA applications don't support those kind of flows in their UI, but the APIs, nobody's stopping you from implementing those APIs, right? And nobody's stopping you from another EUA from implementing those the corresponding callback APIs and rendering that flow, right, in their applications. Yeah.
Yes,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Exactly. That is absolutely right.
Next question is also on the same lines. How can labs become discoverable through UHI? Do they need to implement anything on their end? Ravi, you can answer.
Yeah, sure. Yes, obviously. I mean, they would require to implement the UHI APIs at their end. So an implementation. So what typically happens, and this has happened for other networks like ONDC and Mobility as well, what typically is published is what you call as an implementation guide, right? Which gives you various examples of various domains. I think there is an implementation guide for diagnostic services. Bharat, correct me if I'm wrong, that allows talks about how various diagnostic providers can publish their catalogs. It's the same schema, as I said. Again, it doesn't change, but examples can actually specify that gives a very good view to the developers of the diagnostic service providers on how to structure their runtime JSONs so that they are interoperable across the network, right? So every domain of operations, whether it is diagnostics, consultations, ambulance booking, everything has what we call as an implementation guide.
And
so watch out for that. Yeah. Sorry, Amod, you were saying. Sorry, Amod, were you saying?
Yeah. So just to add a point here, so people who are eager to how we can implement. So what we have done. Yeah, am I audible? Hello.
Yes, Amod.
Yeah,
Yes,
loud and clear, Amod.
Oh, 2 minutes थांबा जरा. Oh, yeah.
we can
So
hear you.
tomorrow's session, I will add. I will show you the adapter which we have developed, which will be again, releasing on the GitHub page. So once that session is done, I will release that on the GitHub page, so you can go through. It is a simple kind of a wrapper around an existing service which converts the third-party APIs to DHP specific or UHI specific protocol APIs.
So next question is, are there any plans from government side to make all the hospitals UHI compliance mandatory?
Okay, let me take this because this is more a policy thing. See, first of all, there is nothing like a UHI compliant hospital. See, effectively what is happening is a hospital has certain services that it provides. And if the hospital is like subscribing to these UHI APIs and publishing its data there, then it is UHI-fied rather. I mean, the services, they are the IT platform on which the hospital is providing the service is UHI-fied. And we in Abdm, one of the policies that we've been following throughout is all the implementation is voluntary. We are not making anything compulsory. We are not going to force any particular individual, either government or private, to follow a certain thing. But it is only in the interest of any particular agency to be UHI compliant, just if they really want to be visible on the public network or a public search when somebody calls the UHI network to avail a particular service which this hospital is providing. So UHI compliance, or rather for that case, Abdm compliance going ahead in the future is like we want to create a situation where there is a network effect when people realize the advantage of being part of this network rather than mandating and making it compulsory or something like that for people to do this.
Thank you, sir. Is the API publicly accessible? Amod, if I'm not wrong, we do have sandbox documentation already available for the participant that they can refer to.
Yes, yes.
Yes, that is correct. I have sent the link on.
There's a question from Kishan Gaur. Where do these master lists come from? Is it a common predefined list of these masters are also decentralized? Kishan, you want to elaborate if you're still there?
Yeah, hi. So this was question related to DHP discussion there because during discussion it was told that for search you can put different criteria to filter out the services offering, like service category, right? So how would end user application know that what could I take as an input from the user? Will there be a fixed predefined list, or this is going to be open to interpretation for all the HSPA which are receiving the search request?
Can I take that one?
Yes.
Sure. So is it Kishan who asked this question?
Yes.
Yeah. So Kishan, excellent question, by the way, right? So while DHP or Beacon or UHI does not mandate what goes into, as of at the moment does not mandate what are the category codes or standards that are going to be used, standard sort of codes that are going to be used inside each of those fields. We are looking at some sort of like a network or mutually agreed set of codified categories that can be actually sent, and those categories might be available as a separate set of APIs called policy APIs, where you can fetch, okay, what are the supported category codes, what are the supported item codes, if there are any medical taxonomy related codes, etc. Those things will be, as I had mentioned earlier, UHI consists of two major layers, right? One is a transaction layer and one is a network policy layer, right? Network extension layer. Those category codes and those standardizations will be available as independent APIs. All right. Maybe from the get-go, those codifications, like let me give you an example from ONDC. Right now, all those statutory fields and the category codes, etc., exist as documents. But later on, those documents, the data in the document will be also available as APIs in order, for more machine readability, etc. So definitely there will be some sort of standardization. Obviously, not complete standardization, because that will sort of restrict various dynamic catalogs being created, but some mechanism where some sort of codification of various products and services will, just like I'm just drawing some parallels from ONDC, but this could slightly change for UHI as well. But what you are looking at are a set of policy APIs that allow you to fetch all these standards and codifications that are
allow you to, allow interoperability of data as well, right? Not just for transactions. Hope that answered your question.
I just
Yes.
want to add over here, just very shortly, right? I mean, UHI, these are the very early stages of UHI, and we will be developing things that will allow for, which will allow for everything to be more discoverable and follow the central tenets that we have sort of described in the consultation paper and so far, right? So the consultation paper has some basic principles, core principles that were established, and fair discoverability will be was one of them, right? So whatever allows for fair discoverability for whoever wants to be discovered on the UHI network, we'll work towards that, and we'll make sure that anybody who has signed up shows up in whichever searches that are required, right? And this also stands true for services that are being offered. So we'll be working towards it, and again, we are open to suggestions from the open community, which is why UHI is an open source way of developing things. So as long as it aligns with the principles that are defined, we will be working towards developing these features.
Thanks. I just have a small follow-up question on the same. So in context of UHI at the moment, whenever there is a search request, every participant is going to receive that participant. Like the registry won't be able to filter out which are the matching participants.
No, from a policy perspective, the registry won't. Okay. And even from a policy perspective for the participants who are on UHI, they have to, for example, if a doctor has listed themselves on an HSPA, if the HSPA wants to participate on UHI, they will have to send that result to the EUA which is requesting for this, right? So it cannot, the HSPA cannot filter out any results that it is giving back to the gateway or to the AUA.
Okay. Yes.
Vivek, can I just sort of do a little modification to your answer? I think.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't know who asked that question. Can I just get the name?
This is Kishan. Yeah.
Oh, Kishan only. Yeah. Okay. So Kishan, so there's a slight sort of amendment which I would want to make over here, right? So given that async nature of that API, right, it was created for a particular reason where if you go back to that original deck where I talked about catalog and intent, right, both of them are declarative objects, right, which means that an EUA can say this is what I want, okay, and HSPA can say this is what I have, okay. Now the important thing to note is that it may not be the exact match to what the EUA asked, right? Now the HSPA has a choice, okay. Now the choice of the HSPA over here is either not to respond, okay. Say let's say I asked for, say, Dr. Asthana or something, okay, in my search request, okay. Now the HSPA doesn't have any Dr. Asthana in the search. Obviously it is not going to return Dr. Sanabhat, right? So in those cases the HSPA can choose not to respond. But let's say if somebody is searching, if an EUA is searching for, say, somebody like for an ENT specialist, okay. Now in that case the HSPA might also send, okay, I don't have an ENT specialist, but I have a general physician, right, with a flag called matched is equal to false, which says this is not an exact match to your search request, but this also allows the HSPA to say publish alternatives to the actual response it was supposed to give, right? So Vivek, just slightly modifying your answer a little bit, the HSPA is not mandated. It is a good behavior of an HSPA to provide the closest match to a particular search, but in real world scenarios that may not always be the case, right? So HSPAs should strive to sort of provide the best match to an EUA search intent, but in case they don't have, right, they can publish alternative catalogs. But if they are publishing extremely out of the way catalogs, that can be taken up as a sort of like that can be sort of constrained. That kind of bad behavior can be constrained by the policies of the network, saying that, okay, if you are sending ENT, your HSPA should not be returning oncologist or something in response, right? Those kind of policies will have to be drafted later on, but it really does not stop because given the both APIs are independent, does not mandate that okay, you have to send the same thing, right? Or else what will happen is a lot of HSPs might not even get an opportunity to respond, right? And the consumer's choice also might get diminished a little bit because the intent of that consumer was not properly understood, right? Maybe the consumer was searching for an ENT specialist because he knew somebody, but doesn't mean that HSPA should not send alternatives, right, in the response, right? Hope it's slightly complicated answer, but hope that made sense.
Yes, that was helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Ravi. Again, that it's just about opt-in versus opt-out. I think you cannot opt a doctor out of the network. You can opt into a network. Yeah. So please let's move on to the next question.
Vivek, let us try to cover more questions. All these questions, quite a few of them will also be answered as part of our documentation. So I think there are raised hands and there are other questions also. One set of questions I think I would like to just take up in a bunch, because these relate to milestone 1, 2, 3. These also relate to what will happen to my previous encounter. And this also relates to how your HPR and HFR will get integrated or will work with this UHI thing.
Sir, also there is one HICM based question. Probably you can take that.
So all three. So I'll just try to combine all these questions together so that there is some overall perspective. See, okay. So I am slightly unwell. I am at home, but I am also babysitting. So sometimes you'll see my daughter shouting around. So please bear with me. See, the thing is, this milestone 1, 2, and 3 had a very specific purpose. That was one was about being able to create an ABHA or validate, or rather generate an ABHA, pull an ABHA that is already existing, depending on the details that are provided. Second was milestone 2 was about being able to link records, what we call the discovery flow, where you are able to look for a record and link it to a particular ABHA address or ABHA ID. The third was being able to request for a record, access it, and then utilize it for processing. So now an EUA is kind of providing some of these services also. Like, for example, the login screen that you saw, we said that one can log in using a mobile phone number or a ABHA address or an ABHA number. So there is obviously an option of, if the application or the end user application wishes, it can actually be an M1 compliant application where you're able to use ABHA number or ABHA address also, apart from setting your own phone number or as an OTP or a password. And while you're doing a teleconsultation with the doctor, the doctor may want to see some of your records. Now, there are two ways to it. The EUA may provide you a option of scanning a record and sharing it directly to the doctor. Or the EUA may be what you call M1 or the M2 or M3 compliant, where when the doctor asks you for a record, based on your ABHA address or ABHA number, you actually give him consent, and the HIECM actually can give you your any previous records that are already existing, which might have got created during a previous encounter. So this is where the M1, M2, M3 construct will add on to what is already on UHI. So if your application, let's say today you have a PHR app that is M1, M2, M3 compliant. That is, you can create ABHA, you can link a record, you can also access a record or give a consent using that for accessing your record. By making it UHI compliant, you are actually bringing into it this universe of search, book, avail, and fulfill world where you are able to connect to health service providers using this particular service. Now, coming to HPR and HFR, there is a very valid question. In fact, one of the questions was, will HSPAs be bound to only show doctors or professionals who are on HPR and not allow those who are not on HPR? Now, see, one of the unique things, or rather authentic things that Abdm provides to or strives to give is, when we tell you that this person is a doctor, we verify and re-verify. A person who is on HPR and claims himself to be a doctor is a verified entity. That is verified by the medical council, or rather the National Medical Commission and the state council, saying that this person is a doctor. So that is the authenticity associated with it. Similarly, when let's say XYZ hospital is saying that I am providing these services, when you are searching for a particular service and then you get a result and you get a result saying that, okay, these are the hospitals providing this service. The HFR being, when we say that this is on HFR, it is a verified entity and these are verified services, so that you can be rest assured that, okay, I'm getting service from someone authentic. So these are the additional things. Now the call about being allowing or not allowing people on HFR or not, those not on HFR and HPR, it's again a policy call. And it also, like, we do have like two views in this. One is to say that, okay, let us give both the results and say one is verified, the other is not verified or self-declared. So that is one option. The other one is that we say that no, nothing doing. Everybody who wants to be in this universe, let them be on HPR and HFR by default. So they both have their own advantages and disadvantages. But we are kind of leaning towards the first option because we really don't want to make certain very strong binding constraints for people to get onto this network. But then I would say that I would encourage people to start using HPR and HFR as much as possible, and also go through the HIECM consent manager mechanism and use the M1, M2, M3 functionalities, so that you actually give the provider person, the end user, a full functionality, the full service of being able to create a digital health record, being able to store it, being able to see it, and being able to share it when required. And doing all of this in an authentic environment where the provider is identified and also the user also is able to see and store this information securely. So, and then this will also take care of another question, because what I did was I just scrolled through and saw what are these questions that can be related. Another question is, how does one validate the previous encounter? That a doctor is like looking at a patient, then what happens to the previous encounter? Now, if the application is M1, M2, M3 compliant, then automatically the entire record is already stored. The doctor can actually ask for the record. The other way around is the HSPA is storing certain background information that, okay, this person was visited by this doctor, but then what if it is a different HSPA which is providing the service this time? And the Abdm architecture or the Abdm building blocks will actually create this ecosystem where entire health records sharing and entire history sharing, or the longitudinal history as we call it, will be made available, and every encounter will actually be more rich by and will be enriched by the previous encounters and the information stored on account of the previous encounters. Okay, so that is what I wanted to say. I hope I'm able to cover quite a few of the questions that have come up here.
Yes, sir.
So maybe we should go to those who have raised their hands now. They've been raising their hands for quite some time.
Sure, sir. Manav Patel, can you please open your mic and ask the question? Manav, are you
Yes,
there?
ma'am. Yes, I am here. So myself, Manav, representing eVitalRx, which is a SaaS platform for retail pharmacists in India to help them manage inventory efficiently with 2000 plus active pharmacists in 22 states of India. So I would like to ask that is this network also includes pharmacists, and how can we contribute to this network?
I can take the question, and then Amod, you can correct me if you want. So Manav, like Ravi has already explained that the APIs are very standardized. Any of the service providers can register and facilitate their services. The only thing is there is an entire sandbox process which is required. Basically, your application or your organization will have to go through the registration, get verified in the sandbox, test the APIs, get compliant, and then we'll be able to use the UHI services.
So ABDM registry and the UHA registry stand separate, or the same process, like the same register sandbox?
So just
coming in, Amod, can I, if I can?
Yeah, sure, please.
Folks, everyone. So the registration process to participate in ABDM or UHI is the same. All you have to do is sign up on the sandbox. Just so that there is no confusion, if you have already signed up for the hackathon, please participate in the hackathon. And then if you still want to continue developing on ABDM, regardless of whether it's about ABHA, HPR, HFR, or the HICM, or if it's UHI, we will make the transition very smooth between the hackathon registration and the ABDM sandbox piece, right? So please register there so that you can have access to the APIs. As far as the keys are concerned, there will be two separate keys. One key to access all the APIs that are there, and one key for being a part of the UHI network. But again, once you register and once you go through the different flows in the sandbox documentation, I think it will become fairly self-evident in terms of what the process is and how to go forward with it. Just one more smaller point over here with respect to the gentleman who has asked the question, which was very specific to pharmacies and the services that are there. Right now, we have not thought about services with respect to pharmacies, but again, these are open protocols. You can contribute if you think that there are certain services that can be more efficient if they are delivered in a more open manner. Then please feel free to contribute to the protocols that exist, and then we can have an entire community building solutions around those protocols.
So the contribution would be started by registering the professional and care facility registry. But is there anything would be there like after the telemedicine has been done or the consultation with the doctor has been completed, so the patient or the doctor can push that prescription to the nearby pharmacy, and the visibility of those medicines, like the services of that facility, basically the pharmacy, can be utilized by the patient or the doctor?
So right now, these flows haven't been thought through. Right now, in terms of
Vivek, I think Kiran sir may want to add in, like, because
right.
Okay. So see, one thing is, I visit a doctor and the doctor writes a prescription. And now, if I understand correctly, the functionality that you're talking about is the doctor then pushing this prescription to a pharmacy and the pharmacy then providing me a service. So this is very much possible, provided the patient is giving his consent. But I mean, I won't say that the flow or application is right now ready, but nothing in the current system stops you from implementing something like this. You might just have to like develop some APIs and flows to do it, but there is a consent mechanism. There is a consent manager which allows for sharing of records from A to B. As of until now, it was more like people who want to access your record were to pull your records. You had to ask for your record.
Right.
Right. So let's say there is a tie-up and the pharmacy, we say that, okay, we will not allow directly the doctor directly to send for it. Maybe we can say that the pharmacy gets a notice that, okay, some consultation like this has happened. The pharmacy can then ask, okay, I can provide this service, and then maybe you can share your prescription or something like that. So there will be certain privacy issues in this also, because whether people would be willing to share the information that they went to a doctor and they had a consultation, what kind of information can be shared, and if you can come up with some flow which does not invade on privacy and which can actually allow us to do some kind of value addition on this, you are most welcome. And that is also one of our going to be one of our challenges, where we ask you to come up with new ideas and new value added services.
Sure, sir. So the question that basically I understood the flow that has been like managing the consent from the patient or the doctor side to the other facility registry, but the facility that provides the services in the say of like the selling of the drugs or the other items. So can he get the benefit of joining this UHI platform? So right now there are no such APIs, but are we planning, like, as I had a word or the discussion with Mr. Praveen Gidam sir and the Mr. Narendra sir couple of weeks back. So they were there, like the hackathon would be there, and UHI would also be open up for the pharmacy facilities also. So that was the main concern.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, digitizing healthcare or the overall the health ecosystem, we realized that pharmacy is a very, very important part of this whole thing. You know, we all know. See what happens. I go to a doctor, the doctor gives me a prescription in writing.
Right.
Now I go to a pharmacy, the pharmacist looks at it. I don't understand the language, the pharmacist understands the language. He then types it out in his computer, prints, and he actually is digitizing that data at that point.
Record. Exactly. Sir.
He's
Right.
creating a record. So even without currently what you call even without coming on to UHI, if that pharmacy or the pharmacy software is Abdm compliant, you can simply create a record and link it to that particular ID, provided the patient is giving you the ABHA number or the ABHA address.
Right.
And as far as UHI is concerned, you are providing this service, and if there is a health service provider who is willing to list pharmacies in his as the bouquet of services that he gives, any pharmacy will be able to come onto it, or even a pharmacy who has a software of its own, by implementing these protocols, can be able to make itself available for search. So that is possible.
Okay. Okay. So
Kiran sir, if you could just allow me to just add to what you said.
Yeah.
Regarding Manav. Manav, this is, I mean, typically, if you look at it, pharmacy is typically like a retail, right? Transaction, right? Transaction wise, right? So ideally, technically, it is absolutely possible within the existing API set itself, right? You can actually take a look at maybe ONDC APIs to see how retail flows are enabled.
Yeah, we are currently onboarded to the ONDC also. So hoping that both the things get connects later on.
Then you don't have to do anything. Like you just have to set up another instance. That's all.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Just one more point I wanted to add. So apart from Sandbox, for the hackathon, we will be creating a separate infra. So don't worry about those things. So probably I think there was people who were thinking that we need to register for Sandbox. Yes, please do register for Sandbox, but we will be also providing a separate network for the hackathon purposes.
Pranav Kumar, if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, ma'am. So good evening, everyone. So basically, I am on ideation stage for my health and wellness startup. So, sir, frankly, my purpose to go to these master classes is key. Since I'm building that venture right now, so I want to incorporate UHI or any such thing that is brought on by government to improve the service to the patient. So now, can you please guide me in brief key, since I'm building that startup right now, so how can I incorporate and why should I incorporate this system into my venture? Why should I incorporate it? Means can I improve my service to the patient, or can I improve my business by incorporation of UHI?
Kiran sir, you want to take it up?
Yeah, let me do that. Okay, first thing is, so the question was, how will so I'll answer the second question first. How will I improve my business by being part of UHI?
Yes.
By being part of UHI, you start becoming discoverable. That is the first point. I mean, people should know that you exist, right? I mean, of course, you can do your own what you call campaigning and all that. But the idea of UHI is that we want to create a space where anybody can come in. We are removing what we call the entry barriers, that you have to be only on a particular platform, and only those people on the platform will be able to see you. So that way.
So just as a pause, I would like to clarify. So I want to work on an aggregator platform. So I am myself an aggregator platform who is trying to link the patients and the healthcare providers. So for such a venture, what is the benefit?
See, that is right. As an aggregator, the advantage is that, see, the thing is, while as an aggregator, you must be thinking, why should I even come on to this? Because I will be, my patients might move out, or I will be sharing information or something like that.
Yes.
It is also the other way around, right? people who are not otherwise on your platform can also start seeing your doctors, or your doctors can also start seeing people who are not on your platform. So it goes both ways. So that way, it is not like it's not only an outflow, it is also an inflow also, and that is the whole idea behind it. I mean, one can say that, okay, this is my single platform and only people on this will be able to talk. There will be obviously a limit unless you become something like a monopoly, and that will never see. At the end of the day, monopoly is not good. Maybe good. It might look good for some time, but after a point, monopolies will have their own restrictions, and then the level of innovation or level of improvement that can happen is only limited. So what we are trying to say is, through UHI, it is not only going to be inflow but also outflow, but also inflow also. So it's not going to be like people will just move away from your service. And in terms of providing better service, I would say that you will be providing whatever service that you're already providing, but at the same time, there will be an exposure. I mean, you will be part of a larger ecosystem where there is a lot of other play going on, and obviously knowledge is not limited to one particular platform or one particular aggregator or entity. So this is only going to increase even further. So I think that is going to be that's what we call the network effect, right? The advantage of being part of a larger network and rather than being on a single platform. So that is another thing I would like to highlight. And Ravi wants to add something else, something more, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, Kiran sir, you pretty much sort of covered it, everything. I just wanted to just add a couple of more points here. Pranav, given that you're starting out, there is a choice which you can make at the beginning, whether you want to be a pure play experience provider to provide the best experience to your customer. Like, it's not given that, as Kiran sir said, each and every service in the medical care, healthcare ecosystem is now available as a standard set of APIs. Now you can literally do magic with all those services. You can bundle services, like, for example, and I can also connect with other networks, right? Like mobility and everything. Like, what if I was able to, book do a, appointment to a diagnostic with a follow-up consultation with a known doctor, plus some other dietary consultations after that, plus a food subscription related to the dietary consultation that I got, plus, maybe once my consultation is over, maybe I can automatically book a cab, all of that within one experience, one single flow, right? Unified. So you can access all of this. Suddenly this entire ecosystem is accessible to you. You can actually become a beautiful experience provider without the additional overhead and burden of acquiring each and every service provider that is happening in aggregator ecosystem right now. Right now, you have to, today's aggregators are acquiring consumers also, acquiring providers also, and they have to maintain that active inventory. Now you can make a choice whether I want to be an experience builder or whether I want to be a service provider. So that could give you some ideas about how to provide rich, integrated, bundled products and services to your end consumer without individually acquiring services from the ecosystems. Right? That's just want to add on top of what Kiran said.
That's a great point, sir. So just an additional question. For example, if someone searches for a service on my app, so can I filter the results that is displayed from the network? But I want only such services to be displayed to that patient. So can I do that?
So can you elaborate on that? I mean, such services,
Yeah,
as in
for example,
services away from the intent.
Yeah, for example, sir, if someone searches for a cardiologist, right? So when he searches on my app, so can I enable to display only those cardiologists who are from Gujarat?
Yeah. So we already have that in place where you can find a specific city. Going ahead, probably Kiran sir can add more to it. We are bringing in the functionality to have a location-based search where, within the radius you can search for the available service providers.
I think, Amod, the question is more about, can I tailor the search results in a way that I provide a result
Filter,
of only a certain group of providers and not others. This is again, the thing is, this is like what I would say, rule or market, how the marketplace. Okay, wait. So this is like what the market rules are going to say, and how the market rules will play out. And the idea is the EUA should be showing all results, and based on the search on a particular search criteria, and saying that I will filter out and show only certain results. Probably, I think is not really truly in the spirit of the game. I mean, like you should give. I mean, if the user has a preference, you give the user to search, or you give the user to filter out certain things. If the EUA is saying that I am hitting out, I mean, there is another at the other end. I have my. Let's say today there is one application which has both the EUA and HSPA, and then the EUA is looking for a search result. And it is hitting the UHI network. And then all the other on the other end, all the HSPAs are showing the results. And if the EUA decides to show only the results coming from its own HSPA, I don't think that we will allow as a market rule. You can do some prioritization, but you should show all the results. So you cannot say that I will not show results from, let's say, other providers or something. You will be able to like do some sort of a prioritization, but I think what you call I would expect that you should be showing all the results, not hide certain results. I think that is at least what I would say.
Yeah, because the crux or the thought and the vision is to give a fair chance to everyone. That is why we have come up with this open network concept. I mean, all the people who are working for this, they are bound by this oath that we will give a fair chance to everyone.
We will come up with these market rules and how it will come out, and I mean, what kind of basic things that one should follow. There can be certain preferences or things like there can be something like sponsored or something like that, but I don't think we will allow hiding all the results and showing certain results only.
Sir, now one doubt that I have is, for example, if I am building my startup, then I will have one vision, and I would like to partner with the healthcare providers who are in sync with my vision and who are of at par quality, rather than a generalized availability of pool. So, sir, in such cases, and even regarding the revenue sharing purpose, for example, if a doctor is charging 100, so I would like to take 10% revenue share from it. So I cannot do it if everyone is there and if every result is published, because then how will I partner with everyone for revenue share? So from that perspective, sir, I ask.
No, your question is completely valid. But what I will say is, we will be having separate consultations on these market rules, right? When we will have this, what you call this whole, how the whole market will play out, etc. And I think that is where these questions can come up. And since this is more a tech-related thing, I would say I would say that this discussion can be taken up as a market rule-related discussion rather than more as a tech-related discussion. Because as of now, the technology enables everything. It is like you can do a lot of things with it, but what can be done, what cannot be done, and what are the business constraints that one would have to face, that can be sorted out. And then imagine the other thing. If you can be in the market of acquiring consumers or acquiring doctors, and if you want to be on both ends, then you are trying to build a platform where you will again not get the advantage. See, you can be on either side and then limit yourself to whatever your reach goes to, or you can try to be on one side and see how best you can achieve it. That is at least as an opening comment I can say. But I think this discussion can be taken up more when we discuss market rules.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
Sure. Thanks a lot.
Next question is from Jessim, if I am pronouncing it right. Can you please open your mic?
Yeah, you're right. Hey, we are from Jatayu Healthcare Technologies. My question is not about any technology or anything. I'm sorry that my internet was very unstable today and I missed a few parts of the discussion. So I think this question might have been asked by somebody. So will you be sharing this video and also the presentation deck with us to go through?
Yes, the presentation, the recording, all documentation, everything will be made available.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
So we don't have any more questions now. So any questions? Please feel free to answer, or we'll otherwise we just conclude. Yeah.
Priyanka, I see Namrata raising her hand and then Pranav again raising the hand.
Hi, Namrata. Please go ahead.
Hi everyone. So I am from Microsoft. So we are working under government of UP. So we have registered for hackathon. So do we need to integrate the UHI API during the hackathon? My
Namrata,
question
can
is
you
clear.
please elaborate your question?
So during the hackathon, we need to integrate that UHI API.
Integrate with HIECM?
This
No, no,
UHI
UHI API, sir. They're talking about UHI API. So I think let me try to answer it. I am not sure, but if I understand you correctly, so we have two tracks in the hackathon. One is integration with the UHI, and one is an innovation. So which track are you going to participate in? Will it be integration or innovation?
Means what is the difference?
I think we can take this question tomorrow because we'll be going through what is there in the hackathon, and what are the different elements at least that will be there as a part of the challenges. We'll be covering tomorrow. So I think tomorrow's session, which again starts at 3 o'clock, towards the end we'll be covering this bit. So if you can hold on till then, that will be great.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. No problem.
Pranav, you can go ahead with your question.
Yes, ma'am. And ma'am, can someone please throw some light on this hackathon? What basically are we trying to build? Because I searched on the internet, but very few details were available regarding the challenge. So do we have to build a software product, or we have to suggest, we have to make a project presentation?
Okay.
It's here to
Vivek, yes, go ahead. Go ahead. Bata do, bata.
So the hackathon essentially is to get solutions out, right? That's the idea of the hackathon, is to have either solutions built or having solutions on the journey of building towards, creating solutions on the UHI network, or provide innovative solutions so that, the entire community, which is there on UHI can, further build on them and innovate and, improve the service delivery, not only to patients, but also to the health service providers. So the intent is very much to build solutions and build products. The evaluation will also be based on submission of the set solutions or set products. It's not just, like a presentation on what can be built. It's not about theory, but actually what is built in the span of 4 days of the solution of the hackathon. The exact challenges for both integration and innovation challenges will be released closer to the date of the hackathon, so that it's free and fair for everybody, because there are a lot of resources that are already out there. But in terms of broad direction, there will be a set of challenges which would be towards integration with UHI, as we have seen today. So it will be using the APIs and the methods and the calls that we have talked about today. And the second part would be to address the problems that the healthcare community at large faces, wherein Dr. Gidam was talking about in the morning, such as things like making a doctor's life easier by digitizing records, so on and so forth. Right. So without revealing too much, we'll have both of these things, and it would be towards providing specific set of solutions towards specific challenges. There is, I must say that one thing though, that there is one of the challenges which is open, right? So you can provide whatever solution, and based on the merits of the
solution that has been provided, you will be evaluated.
Okay, great, sir. Great. Thanks a lot. Sir, just a suggestion from one of the participants, which is me. Sir, please keep, if possible, can you please keep in mind from an aggregator's perspective, who is building a startup in this direction, so that we can also, tune up our efforts accordingly and can also get benefited directly. And secondly, sir, I am very happy that, such great efforts have been taken from the government side, and everyone is getting digitized in a positive direction, sir. And it's great to see every government official working so hard towards it. So thanks a lot for that.
One last question. There was a technical question from Yashkar. If we are working between the servers, so do we need to create a server integrating the APIs, or we need to create a client application integrating these APIs during the hackathon?
Mohd, you should take that.
Yeah, sure. So the UHI gateway server would be provided from our side. Client application, probably you can host it on your local machines and during the hackathon. If there is any certain requirement where you need to host it, then you can let us know. We can have a discussion internally and get back to you on this. But for now, in the plan, we will be providing all the necessary equipment as well, equipment as in the servers space with the gateway already hosted, and where you can play with the APIs, the network registry, and the teleconsultation signaling server. These three will be what we will be providing.
But Amod, he can use our HSPA, right?
Yeah, of course. Sorry, I missed that. Thank you for adding that. So we will be also releasing the HSPAs and EUAs, the reference application. So as if you are an HSPA, you can use the EUA and try to identify whether you're getting the messages, receiving the messages. And if you are an EUA, you can use our HSPA to vice versa. Yeah.
Ravi has anything to add on this? I think he has.
Yes, sir. There is one more question. That is a very valid question. That is fallback URL. I think needs server hosted. Yes, but probably we can have something like ngrok or something. But yeah, I will consider this question. Let me have a discussion with Farooq sir and Kiran sir. For now, I think the other way around, we will have the reference application hosted, and you can use that as the callback. Probably you will have to use ngrok or something for the local environments. I hope I answered that question. Stable. Okay, sir. We'll discuss this. He has a valid point. Let us discuss internally and get back to him.
Ravi, you want to say something?
Yeah. So I just wanted to pass on some learnings from the ONDC hackathon and all. So the expectation over there was for you to build the full stack, which has a client-side application plus a UHI or an ONDC compliant backend that allows you to render the full experience. Because or else what will happen is, you might as well could be calling those APIs from a Postman client, right? But that doesn't really, mean that you have integrated with the network. So which means then you will require to implement the full stack. But I think enough, and Amod, correct me if I'm wrong, but enough and more open source utilities and tools will be given to you to speed up the process and avoid the overheads of implementing everything from scratch.
Sure,
so, yeah,
sure.
I think
That is
that's
correct.
yeah, what I wanted to say. Yeah.
There's another question in the chat. How are the bad actors filtered in the UHI network? Can the feedback and ratings from the customers flow back into network?
I think, the network per se would be like, I don't think we would be like trying to weed out actors who are having a very low rating or etc. See, at the end of the day, it is the user application which is listing a service, and if there is a rating, and obviously even today when we are trying to avail a service and the rating of that particular service is not good, we don't go for it, right? I mean, otherwise, if we start picking up and if the network starts blocking or trying to remove or filter certain agents. I think that I mean, I don't know if we really want to get into that domain. Yeah, Ravi.
Yeah, I think Kiran sir, you pretty much covered it. So the network, please understand, this is for everyone, that the network only facilitates the interaction. The network doesn't filter out anything, right? So which means that the decision to whether avail a product or a service from any HSPA or is the decision of the consumer itself. I could have a badly rated doctor because he is rude or something like that next to me, which is more important to me during the time of an emergency than having a good rated doctor which is far away. So what ONDC currently does is it is currently designing network level shared infrastructures like reputation ledgers, dispute resolution, infrastructures, etc., that allow the data or the reputation to be published on either ends of the application, so that it's the end user that can make the decision based on the data available to him, rather than some network doing its own filtering before even rendering anything to the end user. So what you can expect is, apart from this HSPAs, UAs, and gateways and registry, there will be additional, infrastructures on the network that will improve the reliability, etc., like online dispute resolution and reputation ledgers, which both sides can access, then make an intelligent and allow the consumer and or the provider to make an intelligent decision to make when whether they want to do a business with each other or not, right? So that's the principle of how decentralized open networks typically work. Nobody filters from between, but provide the necessary infrastructure to allow filtering at the endpoints, right? And not the endpoints, at the end users level.
Just quickly adding to one point over here, registries such as health professional registry and health facility registry are there are elements in it which are verified by the government. So while it may not be mandatory for these registries, they will provide another additional data point to the end consumer in terms of whether a doctor is verified and what the credentials of, let's say, a doctor are when they're searching for services. So as NHA and as a part of Abdm, I think the effort would be to provide as much information as required to the consumer so that they can make a smart choice. But at the end, the choice will be the end consumers.
So Vivek, I think we don't have any more questions now. Can we conclude the session today?
Oh, yes, please. I think we're already half an hour over the allotted time. Thank you, everybody, for being so patient and for attending this session. Again, this is the first of two sessions. Tomorrow, we'll have the session again starting at 3 till 5:30. We will be covering the actual implementation of this. We'll be going through the different flows, the functional flows and code walkthroughs of the two reference applications that have been built, along with looking at WebRTC implementation, and then very, very briefly going over how you can participate in the hackathon and what are the different resources that are available. Right? So hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you for joining in, and please do sign up for the UHI hackathon.
Thank you all for participating. Thanks. Thank you, Ravi, and thank you, Amod, and Farooq, and Abhijit, and everyone who took the sessions and answered the questions.
Thank you, sir. Thanks. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Kiran sir. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thanks, Vivek, for moderating, and Priyanka also. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.